What is going on, guys? Happy Sunday to you. Welcome to the AV Experience. We're gonna have some fun tonight. What's
have
up,
a name,
Jonathan? What?
That was like the first time you've ever said that.
First time, man. So I wanted to come up with something different than Sunday Night Live and something that tied in with home theater. And I was talking to Ryan earlier today, and I'm like, man, if only we had a name. And he's like, the AV Experience. It was like just immediately. I'm like, that's perfect.
I mean, literally, I just took M-Wave and took Midwest off of it.
I'm like, that was why did I think of that? That's perfect. So
brilliant.
So this is the AV Experience. So we talk about all things home theater, audio, video, music, movies, pretty much a little bit of everything. TAVE, I see that in the comments. A couple of you guys, oh, what is this? TAVE now? So Erin will be joining with us a little bit later. I think he's taking his daughter somewhere or bringing her home. And so he'll be here probably in about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And so once he hops in, we'll bring him onto the show. But let me say hi to some folks in the chat. Who do we got over here? Scroll back up here. Wim S, good to see you. JD the expert. K-Man's in the house. Megatronics, good to see you, man. Or Megatron's arm cannon. That's a cool name, man. Michael, John, Mikey, Nicholas. Good to see you guys. Jerry, Chris is in the house. Finster, Mark Fox. What's up, brother? Low key. Marv, good to see you. Jamie. Lots of folks in the chat. So, guys, as we're hanging out tonight, of course, we're going to be answering your questions, especially regarding home theater. But if it has something to do with something else, that's totally cool too. Drop those questions in the chat. Near the kind of a little bit later, we'll start addressing those and answering those as best we can. So we've got some great knowledgeable folks on here. I was telling Jonathan, I said backstage, he's here just to teach me stuff, So we were, we'll kind of even talk about that a little bit. He said, what's the deal with the IMAX Enhanced?
No, I said that.
Yeah, Ryan said that, and Jonathan's like, "What? You don't know?" I'm like, not really. I mean, we don't hear about Dolby Atmos.
But then Jonathan did say there's only like 3 titles with IMAX Enhanced.
I was at
way more than 3.
So
why do we even listen to Jonathan?
Hang on, before we tell him, in the chat, let us know how many titles, without Googling it, how many titles do you think are encoded natively with IMAX Enhanced? Throw those in the chat.
1.
Let us know your guesses, your best guess. How many titles are on disc, physical media, in the IMAX Enhanced format? Of course, we've got Dolby Atmos, we got DTS:X, we've got Oro 3D, and IMAX Enhanced. Too darn few, Chris says. Maybe 4 titles. Keep them coming. I'm just curious if you guys are even close. Jamie says about 15. AA says 4. Here's a good question. We'll start.
At least I had good company.
Yeah. Let's see. Keep going, guys. Oh, 0. Nobody. Okay. Beautiful Planet. Waste of money. I actually like that disc. Now, that's one of those that it'd be hard for me to just watch through that series.
Why would that need to be IMAX Enhanced?
There's cool audio in some of those.
I mean, think about when the whales come up and they're like,
or the birds flying overhead.
That would be cool, man. I could see that. 211.
Oh,
you guys are way off.
The whaling demo that needs to happen at M-Wave. We just need to have a room dedicated.
That would be, man.
Just whale calls.
We can make that happen, man. The whale sounds like Bruce Lee. Yeah, that was pretty bad. What is IMAX Enhanced? Great question, Jim. 8. Disney has a few. Very cool. So Jonathan, he did a little research, aka quick Google search. How many did you find?
No, I just like 100 or so. There's a lot more than I thought. Last I looked, it was just like a handful, but there's a lot more. Sony Studios is doing a lot of them now.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I think all of the Marvel ones are.
Well, Disney's doing some of them. So yeah, I mean, it's building up.
I saw a couple questions here. A0 Oval says, isn't IMAX just DTS:X? And then up here, Jim says, what is IMAX Enhanced? So what are some of the kind of the key components of IMAX Enhanced, Jonathan?
So 70 hertz crossover. If your AVR is in cooperation with that standard, it'll automatically switch all speakers to a 70 hertz crossover.
Mhm.
It also introduces the ceiling height speaker, which DTS X Pro can also have. And I think like Ryan has it in his setup with his 47 speakers, but it is.
There's 48. No, there's not.
Wow.
That's the main difference. It's going to just be like another, we called it before the show came, and also run, because it's just another standard. It seems like Dolby Atmos has the long legs this round, and
man, they're
vast
killing
majority of titles.
Excuse me. Yeah, I don't really see much happening in the area of IMAX Enhanced. I don't know. It just they've done nothing to really promote that, you know. And with lack of titles with native support for it, kind of makes it hard for those or that format to really prosper and to do well. So, yeah, pretty wild. So yeah, so that was just interesting. What if 500 titles? Yeah, we don't have 500 titles yet. Looks like there's probably about 100. So, well, good deal, man. Hope you guys had a great week. So, like I said, tonight we're going to be answering your questions. So, if you've got questions, just drop those in the comments. We'll get to those kind of in the order that they're received. If you do a super chat, we'll put you up at the top, first priority for that. And Aaron from Aaron's Audio Corner will be joining us. Pretty much about, he said he gets home probably about 8:15 his time. So that would be Central. So
about an hour from now.
Eastern. Yeah, so about an hour. So he'll be joining us once he gets home. We'll have some fun there. So Aaron's got a great channel. We'll talk a little bit about him, what he does on his channel, and just have some fun. So, all right, man.
I think we need to talk about M-Wave.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm getting sidetracked. So Midwest AV Experience, we've got some fun stuff to share with you about that. A lot of you guys are already signed up. If you haven't, we'd love to have you join us on July the 14th through the 16th. It's going to be in Kansas City at the Kansas City Convention Center. You can check out all the details, all of the vendors that are signed up. And then actually not even all the vendors. We still got a couple more that we're talking with. We just got confirmation last week of a new vendor. So I'm waiting to get their information so we can start promoting them as well. But all the details are at Midwest AV Experience. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have some side-by-side comparisons, projector comparisons, speaker comparisons. Ryan's putting together a speaker comparison that you'll be able to listen to an individual speaker. We're not going to do pairs. We're going to do individual, a mono signal. Just makes it easier for you to kind of figure out what is different, you know, between those speakers that you're listening to. It's on a big Lazy Susan. He'll be back there on the hamster wheel, just spinning it or running on. I don't know.
Constantly. We won't stop it. It's just going to constantly spin.
It just be running.
Can you identify what speaker is on right now at any given time?
Yeah. So that'll be fun. So we're going to do that. We're going to have a lot of fun. And this year we've got, I'm so excited about this. We have several brands and some of them that are even kind of collaborating and coming together to make a big room, but several full-fledged Dolby Atmos demo experience rooms for you. Per Listen is going to have a full demo system. SVS is doing a full home theater system. JTR is doing a 7.4.6 with their big boys. He's bringing 4 of the 4,000 ULF JTR Captivators. So that's good. You laugh though, but these are huge rooms though too, John.
You're getting kicked out of there, man. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, we have gotten it. We have gotten
in
it
writing.
in writing.
I asked them repeatedly. I said, is there any noise ordinance?
Yeah.
Is there any problem with any level of noise? Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. There may be after we get through with our show.
Yeah. They make them.
There's not right now
for next year.
There'll be an emergency council.
Yeah. There's not right now.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Lazy Susan and the speaker comparison, there are going to be speakers that are going to need homes after the show, and they can be spoken for before the show. Now, you'd have to put a deposit down, something like that before the show, but there's going to be demo speakers that are going to need homes after M-Wave completes. So as of right now, and I'm still putting this list together, there's going to be Martin Logan B100s. There'll be a pair of those. Focal 906 Arias. There's going to be, I think, Polk R200s. There's going to be, I think, some level of Kef around that same price point. I'd like to do Bowers and Wilkins. I'm still trying to track down the best way to do that. There'll be the Klipsch 600 M2s.
M2s, yep.
Yeah, so there'll be those. And then there's one more that I can't think of that's there. But there'll be like 6 or 7 different pairs that are going to need to find homes. And there'll be I would assume, and we haven't narrowed down any type of list or anything yet, but there's going to be quite a list of equipment that is going to need to more than likely find people to go home with. Because what happens with a lot of these events is you get a lot of gear that gets opened as new in box, and then it's no longer new in box. So we try and help our vendors in placing and getting that gear adopted by people that are there. So it's a win-win for everybody involved. Granted, it's demoed equipment, but it's going to have full warranty, and it's going to be like buying new, except you get to maybe take a little bit off the top. So if that's something that interests you, at least right now in the bookshelves that I listed, shoot me a message. This is just trying to make sure that we find homes for everything, because this is not necessarily a cheap endeavor. Like for the speakers and the projectors and anything that I'm having to do, a lot of that's self-funded. So I try and do this as much as I can self-funding wise. So I'm not reliant on any company. So I'm not really, I'm comparing a bunch of different speakers and such, and I don't really want to put anybody in a bad position. So there's no winners or losers, but I just want to make sure that I don't have a divorce as a result of this, which is important. Because my wife doesn't want to see her savings account go down to zero. But that's neither here nor there. So hopefully we can find some homes. If any of those you find an interest in, Chris, will you sell the R200s for $200? No.
Not there. We can't guarantee there's going to be.
You may need to up your negotiations skills and maybe the style there, but definitely not $200. But if that's something that may interest you, let me know and we can see if we can help you out.
Yeah. And the cool thing, like Ryan said, we've already talked to some vendors that they basically have told us, they're like, man, if you can help us sell the gear at the show, that would be super helpful, because we don't want to have to take this stuff back. It's it's a lot of work, and then they got to figure out where to sell it, how to sell it. And a lot of these companies don't have the means of selling used gear. Even
Jeff, do you have to be there to buy the speakers? No, you're going to have to help with shipping at that point, right? Because I can't.
So more than likely for the vendors that are there, probably.
Yes, but for things that I'm buying personally,
he's like, whoever can send me the cash. Because the cool thing is he can ship them. That's not a big deal.
Whoever can bail me out gets them.
Yeah. So you can, let me drop Ryan's email. So if you're repeat those again while I'm doing this.
Well, this is in flux, but
the
Projectors are the Martin Logan B100s, the Focal 906 Arias. There's going to be some type of Bowers and Wilkins. Not sure which one, I think. Kef. And these are all going to be within that same price range. There's going to be some that are going to dip down because the manufacturers don't make anything that compete in that price range. Klipsch 600 M2s. I think the Polk R200s. And then there's others, but that's it for now that I can think of. I'm trying to iron out the list and source everything, but that's it.
SBS has got a pair of bookshelves.
Oh, SBS.
Maybe they'll bring us that.
Probably the Ultras.
Ultras
is what I would imagine.
Yeah, be super, super fun. So the idea behind that is he's going to take one of these speakers, put it behind an acoustic transparent screen. We're not going to do all of those on the same.
Will probably be 2 rounds.
Round. I couldn't think of the word there, but it won't be on the same round because you really need to kind of only have a handful to be able to listen to the different speakers, take down some notes, and then we'll reveal what speakers you were listening to. There'll be at different price points, different design philosophies, and you might be surprised, and Jonathan has done this with some of his friends. You might be surprised. You may go into it thinking, absolutely, I know I'm going to love the Bowers and Wilkins because those are my favorite brand. And you may find out that you like Klipsch the best, or vice versa. You may be a Klipsch guy and you're like, man, I love horns. And you may find out that you like the Focals better. And it's interesting. I'm curious because I've never been to a blind comparison of speakers to where we try to remove as many of the biases as we can, even physical biases. When you look at a speaker and you know that that speaker costs 3 times as much as another one, a lot of times our brain will try to justify the price of that speaker and say, oh, well, it probably sounds better. So we're trying to remove that as much as possible. So these speakers will be behind an acoustic transparent screen, so you won't know what speaker that you'll be listening to. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. There was a question up here, and I did see your super chat. We'll get to that next, Nicholas. Where's that? Christopher, this is in Kansas City. So it's at the Kansas City Convention Center. So all of the details can be found on the website, midwestavexperience.com. There's a link for attend, and right underneath that drop-down menu, you've got, right underneath the drop-down menu, there's information on hotels. There's information on the venue itself. There's information on food, which Chris in the chat has so graciously put together. Chris is a food connoisseur, man. He knows where all the good places to eat are in Kansas. So, oh, he's going to buy your Lazy Susan from you.
I got to keep it for next year.
That's awesome, man.
It's a big one. I mean,
yeah.
I intentionally overbuilt it. The center pivot mechanism will support up to 4,500 pounds.
You got
Not
pictures?
that I ever.
Wow.
No.
So you could potentially do towers one year.
That's why I did it this way.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So it's going to be built in a way that we could use it for towers. Like I could put the Neolith on it.
Wow.
You could put subwoofers on it at that point.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing it that way.
Yeah.
So it's a center pivoting mechanism that'll support like 2,500 pounds, and then casters on the outside, so it all stays level.
Yeah. So needless to say, we're going to have a ton of fun at this. And this is going to be an event that's really nobody's doing. I mean, some people are doing elements of this event, but nobody's taken it to this level. Nobody's trying to expand this to as large of a group. And so if you're interested in that, we'd love to have you join us. Again, dates are July 14th to the 16th. We'd love to have you there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let me jump over here. A couple super chats came in. Nicholas, appreciate the $15 super chat. Is there any way of upmixing Dolby Atmos if the source isn't available in Atmos? Often playing back music in Dolby Surround, but just wondering if upmixing Dolby Atmos is available. I'm running the Avium 90 from Anthem. Great question, man.
Jonathan, I'm going to let you take that one because I think you do it the most.
Sure. There isn't. Dolby Surround is the variation of upmixing. So Dolby Atmos is a very specific thing with object-based encoding. A musical sound or an object of sound is given a defined 3D place, and it can be moved around. If you ever look at some of the software and video for how they encode Dolby Atmos, it's pretty cool. They can take like a bird and they can drag it across your home theater in the software, and that bird will follow the 3D object that they drag in space. So that's how they can do their coding. Dolby Surround isn't using objects, but it's just upmixing kind of the same old way that they've done this for years. They just keep improving the algorithm little by little, you know, ProLogic and then ProLogic Z and ProLogic 2 and all those different things. Dolby Surround is their newest upmixer. So it's taking less than object-based sound and upmixing it to all your speakers that are present. So no, if your question is technically, can you get Dolby Atmos out of non-Dolby Atmos source? The answer is no. But Dolby Surround upmixes to use all your speakers and does a good job, in my opinion.
Now, are there settings in the AVR that you can kind of tweak with his Avium 90 for upmixing, or is it just kind of default?
As far as I know, that's going to use the same as everyone else. It's going to have like DTS Pro or DTS X. I don't think it has Pro, does it? Do you guys know? It's going to have DTS X, so that's Neural X for their upmixer, the equivalent of Dolby Surround. And then we got Dolby Surround, and then you might have Oro. I'm really not familiar with the AV90. Let me look it up real quick while we're here. I haven't had my hands on an Anthem for 10 years, probably 8 years, I think. It does not look like it has.
I don't think it's going to have Oro 3D, if I remember correctly. Let's see.
There's very few that have DTSX Pro.
What's that?
Yeah.
There's very few AVR and Pre-Pro that have DTSX Pro.
Yeah, so it's got Dolby Atmos, DTSX, IMAX Enhanced, and that's it. So no oral 3D.
Right. So you're going to be kind of limited. Does it have, it doesn't, you said it didn't have IMAX enhanced, or it does?
It does have IMAX enhanced. Yep. Put this up here.
So IMAX enhanced, as far as I know, at least on the Denon and Marantz products, you cannot just choose it. Like you can't, it's not like a setting that you can go through the, like the movies button and choose that as a codec. It has to be encoded on the source disk, and then it flips over to the IMAX enhanced logo and will present the audio that way, but you don't get to choose it. So it looks like on the AV90, you're going to be limited to Dolby Surround or DTS Neural X.
The best thing to do is just play with both of them, see what your ears sound, you know, what you prefer the best. And you may find with certain types of music, you like one setting, and maybe with another, you may like, you know, the other. So just play around with those. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I had a guy the other day in my comments, he said, I really love listening to music in all channel stereo. And I'm like, really?
So, interesting enough,
he loves it. I'm like, okay.
It works better on some receivers than others, and I'll give you a specific example. Like the old Onkyo Pre-Pro that I had, a 5508, it boosts the left and right channel 3 dB. So even though it's multi-channel stereo, all the left side's going to all the left speakers and all the right side's going to the right speakers, your front soundstage is still present, and it's that extra boost on there works really well. I enjoyed it on Onkyo. So
I take that back. It wasn't for music. He was doing that for movies. I'm thinking, you've kind of taken away the whole purpose of being
gunshots everywhere. I mean,
and again, and we kind of laugh about that. And maybe you're in the chat and that was you. The reality is you need to figure out what works best for you. And if you love the way that that sounds, great. You know, some people are going to listen to music in 2-channel stereo only. They will not add a subwoofer. They don't want surround sounds, and that's totally great. Some people are okay with doing a 2.1 or 2.2 to where they have subwoofers connected with towers. And then there's others that like all channel stereo, or maybe you like Oro 3D upmixing, or, you know, Neural X or whatever. So you got to figure out what works best for you. But I just thought that was really odd, taking a native Dolby Atmos and go, you know what? I really don't want to know where objects are supposed to be coming from. I'm just going to put them in, you know,
I'm just going to overwhelm my senses.
Yeah. But to him, that's what sounded great. And if that's it, you know, and that works for you, you know, so be it, man. But Nicholas, great question, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, someone's in the comments saying you're too nice, Michael. I'm going to say that's set up wrong if he prefers multi-channel audio.
I'm just saying, maybe it's each his own, man.
Maybe it's an older setup with like not as updated surround codecs or surround mixers, and maybe he likes it that way. I mean,
yeah, it was different. I was like, that was the first time I'd ever heard that. I'm like, okay, I could see maybe doing that with music just because you want more of an enveloping sound. But
yeah, Melvin in chat actually says, where'd that comment go? That's how he listens to music.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Somewhere in here.
Yeah, right up. Yeah, Melvin, I only listen to music in all channel. Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Each their own.
But like I said, this was for movies. I'm going, yeah, you're going to miss anything that flies overhead. And
well, you wouldn't miss it. It would be everywhere.
Yeah. All at once.
Oh, goodness.
What's that movie? Anything Everywhere All at Once? I mean, that would be your that's how you'd be living in your theater.
Any audio everywhere all at once. That's what we'll call that one.
We need to have a post conversation with that fella and pick his brain a little more, figure out what's going on.
Yeah, bring him on the channel, like, and get us some more insight. I need some more context.
I need to know.
I need more context. Home Theater Nerd, appreciate the $5 super chat. I get not EQing near field subs, but should you have them playing when you EQ the far field? Yeah, far field subs. So you EQ for their effect on the room response. Jonathan and Ryan, you guys got to tackle that one.
So all the receivers and processors are going to handle this a little bit differently. The higher end processors handle this a little bit differently than the lower end processors, even in the same line. So I'm going to say this, like the early or the cheap Odyssey versions, either one, like, you know, they got XT and XT32 and non-XT. The cheaper versions of Odyssey are just going to either EQ them individually and not EQ them together. Or, you know, if you got one stereo out and you're splitting it, it's not even going to EQ them individually. You're just going to get one for everything for subwoofers. The higher end Odyssey products are going to basically EQ them individually and then kind of play them both together as well. So that's for Den and Marantz. How does your Storm do it, Ryan?
How does Dirac do it?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to EQ them individually and then place them in using live bass control and integrate them back in. But how I do that personally is I don't allow the near fields to integrate in with the far fields. I keep them totally separate, because trying to get the near fields integrated in with the far fields using a measurement mic, in my opinion, is just a disaster waiting to happen, because they're firing through fabric in the back. They're doing all kinds of wonky things. And it's not the way EQ or room EQ is designed to be utilized. So I run if I do room EQ, I do it without the far fields and then or near fields, excuse me, and then I'll bring them in later. But not everybody has the ability to do that, depending on what your processor or AVR is. I mean, if you're splitting them out, you may have to just EQ using the far fields and then split it and use the same EQ on the near field if you don't have a mini DSP. Just depends on your situation.
With the Den and Marantz product, you can use the $20 app and curtain off your subwoofer response too, and get rid of the frequency response to the EQ that it tries to apply. And that's a good option for your near fields. Go ahead, Michael. Have you played with that at all?
No, I have not. Like I said, I don't have near field subs. I don't have the ability to do that in my room at all, just because of the space limitations. I don't have big, massive basements like you guys do. My full room is 13 by 19, but my front cabinet is 4 feet of that. So floor space, I've got 13 by 15, and I've got 2 rows of seating. So once you add that, the riser, I really don't have any room. I can't I can't recline the rear seats all the way without literally putting your feet up against the
That's
front
part
row.
of the immersive experience. You don't feel like you're at a theater unless your chair is getting kicked.
Man, I smell sweaty teenagers. Oh, it's their feet right here, man. You know,
gotta take a shower after the movie.
Yeah.
So this is a casualty of last week. I've been playing with these little tins. I showed you guys in the last podcast. I was playing with these because I wanted to see if I could have a smaller box behind my chairs instead of these big old boxes.
Right.
And
seemed to work out well.
It did all right for about a week, and then
it was smoking. I hear it was a smoking experience.
I don't know if it smoked, but it makes bad sounds. Can you hear that rattle?
Oh my gosh,
it's not good.
Yeah.
So I found out, and I wasn't even running that hard. I found out that I need a little bit more. I was trying to turn it up a little bit louder than it could take. So maybe try a 12 or 15 next if I can't figure that out.
Oh, that was a 10?
That's a 10.
Yeah.
Oh, Jonathan.
It's a beefy 10, but it just wasn't up to the task.
It tried. The little wolfer that could. Should write a children's book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Too funny, man. Here's another super chat down here.
What's all this? After this one, I want to know what all this conversation is about NZ9s and NZ8s.
Okay. Well, that's one question here. So John, appreciate the $10 super chat. Projector question, is the NZ9 worth the price difference over the NZ8? Your personal opinions, law of diminishing returns. So MSRP NZ8 is what?
16.
So $16,000. NZ9?
27.
So $16,000 to $27,000. So pretty significant difference. We're not talking just a couple of thousand. We're talking $10,000 or more.
Maybe it's 26. It's something like that. 26 or 27.
Definitely a significant difference. So what are we looking at as far as the physical differences between the NZ9 and NZ8?
Main difference is you go from 2,500 to 3,000 lumens.
Okay.
You go from a 65 millimeter to a 100 millimeter lens, all
Which
glass.
does what?
You're able to get the projector closer to the screen is the primary thing that happens.
Okay.
Is that worth it? That depends on who you ask. In my situation, it would have been disaster if I didn't have the NZ9 because it wouldn't have worked. Yeah. So I've told this story on here, but I put that 135 inch screen up there, replacing the 120 that I had. And in my infinite wisdom, I forgot to check the zoom on my projector. Yeah. So when I was zooming it out with Chris Seymour and Evan in the room, I'm zooming it out, and it stops. And guys, I look at Chris and Evan and go, I'm out of zoom. I can't zoom out anymore. But I lucked out because I had 1/8 of an inch of overscan, which is all I needed. Is all I needed. But I got very, very lucky. If it wasn't the NZ9 and I had NZ8, it wouldn't have worked.
So you had to spend, what is the math on that? What's the difference dollar-wise? I stink at doing math in my head.
$9,000.
So you spent $9,000 for a 1/2 inch?
No, but I would have.
That's a big
When you
difference,
put it
man.
like that.
Depending on the guy that you ask, that may be worth it, Michael.
Yeah. Wow, man.
Some people
So,
got that joke and others didn't. But,
I
you know.
did. I
Okay.
just didn't smile as big.
So I actually just ran a calibration on my NZ9 over the weekend, and I am throwing at probably 12 feet is my throw distance, so I'm really close.
Yeah.
On a 135-inch screen, I am hitting 210 nits.
And it's a beautiful image.
Is insane.
Twice as bright as normal. Like 100 nits is kind of standard for SD.
I'm getting like 50 probably on my NX7. I'm serious. I'm shooting 150 inch,
210. So
nice.
I don't know the technical parts of this, but my estimation from talking to some of the guys that are smarter in this field than I am is that how the JVCs do light recycling, it's actually allowing us to push past the 3,000 lumens, because I think it's actually like 3,200 or 3,300 lumens is what I'm measuring. So, and that's a measured calibrated in a 1D lightning LUT through the NV. So that surprised me, but 210 lumens. So it's stupid bright.
So John says he's got a large screen. I mean, you're at 135. I'm at 150.
What's John at? Oh,
John's got a big screen, bro. 175-inch diagonal. So
it'll be fine. It'll be enjoyable.
So, but I guess going back to the question, so that's a massive size screen. One thing I would encourage you to do, John, is maybe use one of the projector calculators. There's one on projectorcentral.com, and there's also one on Audio Advice.
Yep.
You can go to both of their websites and kind of compare, just to make sure they're about the same. Audio Advice has got a really slick projector calculator, not their room builder, but they actually have a separate projector calculator, and it'll actually show you based on that size screen with whatever projector you're considering, whether or not it's going to meet like HDR standards and how much lumens. So it's pretty slick application. So definitely check that out to see if that's going to fit within that. But kind of based on your experience, Ryan, I mean, would that be
big screen?
I mean, there's no doubt going with a massive screen, having more output, light output, is going to be a good thing.
My John, you and I need to have a conversation, because there's some things that we need to make sure that are being accounted for in that. I am a proponent of retina melting brightness. I mean, it's got to be like stupid bright. So, in my opinion, with that large of a screen, and this ramps the expense of even more, is NZ9 with a DCR.
Okay, so an anamorphic lens.
If he's going CinemaScope, because if you're going CinemaScope, you're losing 20% of that brightness effectively, because it's going off the top and bottom of the screen. If you use a DCR, which is the one that you have to have because it's a 100mm lens, the other ones use the smaller lens or anamorphic lens. It brings and redirects that light onto the screen, so you're able to utilize that 20% again, which on a 175-inch screen,
big screen,
in my opinion, it's worth it. Would it be okay not using it? Yeah. Would you be okay using an NZ8? Probably. But once you put it next to one, once you get ruined by putting it and seeing that same setup on an NZ9 with a DCR, there's no going back.
John, I'm assuming, does that mean you are using a DCR lens with that?
Or was that? Yeah.
Give us a little clarification of what you're referring to on Yes, I Am.
And then Ryan brings up a good point here about your gain of your screen. And I think that's probably what Ryan was alluding to talking offline, because there's a lot of moving parts there.
Oh, for sure. We definitely need to have a conversation with that, because there's things in the room, your screen gain, all kinds of things that can make that very, very difficult. and cause problems. So
Yeah,
I'd
Ryan an email.
recommend we have a conversation.
Oh, he says down the road, a Panamorph with a 2.4 screen.
That's somebody else.
Oh,
That's
was it?
JC Reynolds.
I'm sorry.
So if he's talking 175 CinemaScope screen, then it's going to be more like a 200 something 16:9.
That's a big
equivalent.
screen.
Now you're getting really big. If it's a 175 16:9, that's a little bit maybe easier to swallow.
So the Yes I Am was referring to the
CinemaScope
screen.
That's a big boy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll be honest, I'm excited for you. I love seeing huge.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, huge immersive screens. So with that size screen, man, honestly, I'd love to hear what's the size of your room and what's your seating distance on your front row. I'm curious on that.
Throw distance, even with an NZ9, is going to become an issue at that size of a screen.
Yeah. Jonathan, a little shout out to you and your channel. Thanks for the projector comparisons. Jonathan's doing some real cool stuff on his channel. So the easiest way to find him is to look at his name right there, Jonathan Von England. Just search for that on YouTube. He's got a great channel. Check that out. Actually, you know what I need to do? I need to just start adding your channel in the description too. So yeah, man, I'm excited for you, John. That's fantastic, man. Sounds like you got a killer system you're putting together. Cool, man. Let's get to some more questions here. So Pitts S2C says, how much money does Jonathan have in his home theater system? Man, you guys are personal tonight. What is up with this, dude?
Yeah, I'm going to decline to answer. And I'm also going to say, that realistically, I've had a lot of different systems and you don't need to spend a lot to have a really enjoyable system.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that. If you really are curious because you kind of want to replicate or something, reach out to me on AVS forum and we'll have the discussion.
Yeah.
But I don't have any need to like kind of brag around here or anything. That's fine. I've had fantastic sounding systems with just $200 speakers a piece, so you can do a lot with a little if you want.
Absolutely. It's definitely, and I think, again, kind of going back to M-Wave, I think we're going to find that there are going to be a lot of people that are surprised, and it won't be everybody, but a lot of people are going to be surprised that what they think
just how bad Jonathan's system is.
They're going to hear, several speakers that are different in price range. And just because you spend more money doesn't mean you're going to yield a better result.
Right.
A lot of it's about implementation, calibration, speaker placement, those things, room acoustics. That makes way more difference, big of a difference in your setup than just going out and buying more expensive stuff. You can have the most expensive processor, and if your room acoustics are garbage, it's going to be super limited on what it can do to fix that and make it sound good. Vice versa, you take an inexpensive home theater system, speaker system, but you have great acoustics, you've got great placement, speaker placement, you're going to get good immersion, you're going to get great sound, you're going to get great dialogue. And so, like Jonathan said, you don't have to spend a fortune in this game. And I think that's what's awesome about it. Now, for those of you that have huge budgets and you want to go to the tip top and you want a Mad VR Mark II that just came out and you want a Trinov and you want some Perlison subwoofers, and man, go for it. That's awesome. But the reality is most of us aren't able to do that. But the great thing is there's so many good brands out there that you can build a nice home theater around and not have to take out a second and third mortgage on your home to do so.
Right. And then along those lines, I'm going to highlight Ryan's comment as well, because a lot of my stuff was used actually.
Yeah.
As I'm getting older and have more pay and more income, it's becoming less of that. But certainly I started out with a lot of used gear, and even my speakers are used. So the 13 70J1s that you see around the room, I got at auction. So if you're going to try to replicate something all at once, which is what Ryan's pointing out here, and I'll echo this, if you're going to say like, hey, I want to buy this system right now, you're going to spend an awful lot more than if you can shop around and look for deals. So there's that option too.
100%.
Well, the other thing that people need to remember is that these rooms that a lot of people have, their journeys. It's not something that we've built, at least for the guys here, that we've built overnight. It's things that have taken a long time and have gone through several iterations to become what they are now. Yeah. And there have been a lot of mess ups along the way. There have been a lot of like, why did I do that? That was a bad idea, and learning and experiences, and to reach the point that the rooms exist in now. Yeah. And I wouldn't trade any of that.
I'm on year 17 of my theater build. And so I started off like Jonathan. I had a ton of used gear.
Mhm.
You know, I would buy them and that's where the whole term youth man deal came from. I would post pictures in the Clips forum and I would say, hey guys, I picked up these pair of Clips speakers for $400 and they're normally selling for $1,200. And it's like, that's crazy. And they're like, man, you found a cool youth man deal. And it just kind of stuck. But over the years, I had to get just super creative because there's no way that Jessica was going to let me just go and spend, astronomical money on my home theater hobby. So I had to figure out a way to make this financially possible for me. And so the used market was a great, great way for me to be able to do that. And I even shared a video on my channel. If you look up, just search YouTube for Youth Man Journey. I go through where did my speaker journey start off with? And it's hilarious because it's a 19-inch TV in my theater room. I have what I call a custom entertainment center. It literally was a plastic Tupperware kind of storage container. So the TV was on top of that and the center channel, but that's where I started. And it's like, okay, then you slowly build over time. I had used speakers. I did some bartering for subwoofers. I bartered with a cabinet maker that built my first front cabinet, before I had the one that I've got now. And so a lot of that, I did another barter for a guy and I built his website. I got a pair of free speakers, brand new. I did another barter, build a website for a guy and he came over and helped me run, install my projector and run all my cables through the walls because he had all those little poles, those fishing rods that you shoot up through the wall to fish wire through because he was an AV installer. For some reason, all these AV installers 16 years ago had doo-doo websites, man, and they all needed help. So that worked in my favor because I was able to do
that hasn't changed, Michael.
Man, hey, we're working on one at a time. That's what we're doing. So, but yeah, so definitely, man, the used market's a great way to be able to fund that. Juan Hernandez got a question here. I guess you've already mentioned this before, but what's the process that you perform for manual EQ and maybe a Denon? What devices do you use for optimal calibration? Great question. That wouldn't be me because I'm just an Odyssey, Direct Live, Wipeout, whatever, AVR I'm reviewing at the time. So I typically use that. I haven't gotten into manual calibration, but these guys even take a different approach than manual EQ. And what do you guys use in your setup?
We're a little different. We talked to this in last week's podcast, so maybe go back and watch that one. We'll give you a sweet and low here. I just use the onboard, the parametric EQ. So I run Odyssey to set my distances and stuff, and then I shut it off. And that means no dynamic EQ. That means no Odyssey EQ. And then I run a parametric EQ, and I, just like I said in last week's podcast, I run a little smiley face, and it's not much.
It's high tech, baby.
Yeah.
Jonathan, are you able to, is Odyssey in the Denon and Marantz products, is it able to be more accurate than what you can do manually? Do you know?
Oh, yes. The manual PEQs are just like, there's either 5 or 7 bands, I think, depending on your model.
No, not the, sorry, not the PEQs, the delays. Or is it stuck with the, down to the foot or whatever it's using?
I think it's
Odyssey?
down to the inch on Odyssey products right now for the more premium line, like the XT32. It's like, 12.1 foot for your speaker. So I don't know. I'd have to look at it again to see if it's 12 foot 1 inch or if it's 12.1. I'm not sure what the division is there, but it's 0.1 or 0.3 or 0.7 or, those types of things.
Yeah. Instead of a full foot.
Exactly. I suspect that's inches as I think about it, because I think the switch is foot and inches, but I wouldn't swear to it.
Yeah.
If it's 12.1, it's probably a little over an inch. Granted that a foot has 12 inches.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know whether it's literally inches or not. I'd have to look at the menus to remind myself.
I'm going to Google Foo while you're explaining this.
Some people will use, something like, REW. And so they'll take a measurement of each one of their speakers and they'll try to EQ those or, use REW to kind of apply like a house curve to it or some kind of target curve to get that flat frequency response across each one. And then they're adding a parametric EQ, like using maybe a mini DSP or something like that. But again, I personally have not done that. To me, Odyssey and the other, room correction, they do a good enough job for me, for my needs. And then I just go in there and tweak some things like make sure my levels are all matched other than my subwoofers. I'll go in there and I'll change some of the crossovers because it doesn't always get it right. And so I change my crossovers to my liking. And
Yep.
for the most part, that's about all I do, and then I
Yep.
just sit back and smile and enjoy it.
Yep.
So,
I'll tell you something I always wanted to do, but I just never did it. You can buy those 32 band EQs and you can route your left and right speaker through them. And if you wired it up to go to your seats, I think it'd be a lot of fun just to have that 32 band EQ at your seats and be able to tinker a little bit.
Right.
What I don't know is how much you would continue to use it, like once you got it set, but it'd be kind of fun to have that. I often sit in music and listen to music for 2 hours. It'd be fun to have that kind of granularity on the EQ while you're listening.
Sure.
So Google Foo has told me, I'm looking at the Denon 2800H, which is one of their newest AVRs in their manual. And you can do meters or feet.
Okay.
In meters, you can go to 0.01 meters or you can go to 0.1 feet. That's your increments.
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah. T-Rex says 12.1 feet isn't in feet. He's maybe saying that's 1/10 of a foot, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not even.
Yep. Peyton Nelson says, I have a question. So most streaming services, regardless of Atmos, only support at most 5 bed layer speakers if you only stream. Is it worth getting more? So he doesn't have a 4K player, doesn't have Kaleidoscape, just is utilizing streaming. Is it even worth going with 7 speakers on the bed layer, 9 speakers on the bed layer, if there's not that native content? Great question, man.
Well, you've had really good luck with Denon upmixing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even agree with the premise here. I think we have a false premise. Most streaming services, regardless of Atmos, do you mean if it's not Atmos? Because if it has Atmos, it's going to have typically object-based sound. And I can validate for sure that my 13 speakers are all active most of the time when I'm playing streaming, because I do a lot of streaming. So I think a premise is wrong.
Okay.
It's certainly not just using 5 bed speakers. My front wides are lit up a lot with different content. And certainly with the upmixers, if nothing else. So yes, in my opinion, diminishing returns, as we've always talked about in every one of these podcasts.
Sure.
But more speakers is generally better, so long as you don't handicap the speaker that you buy because you were trying to buy so many of them and, get too cheap of a speaker all around, basically.
I love Billy's comment. Oh man, I got to scroll way down here. I love Billy. He says 2 hours of music listening. He said, man, been there many times. He sat down at night to listen to music. And the next thing you know, it's daylight. Oops.
There you go, man. We should have a beer together and listen to some music sometime. That'd be fun.
Dude.
So that's something I want to do, is start doing music get-togethers and not really worrying about demos. Just do music.
Enjoy music. Yeah. That's super cool, man. I'm still jealous of you guys. Hey, let me just throw this out here. If you guys are in Florida, somebody needs to take up the
Where are you at?
I'm serious. I tried to start this a while
Notice
back.
how Michael doesn't want to do it. He's like, if somebody else wants to do it, and that guy's not me.
There's no way I can do that. There's no way. I have so much on my plate.
Excuses.
Dude, I have probably 20 speakers and receivers and processors and MadVRs and stand-up desk. I got a bunch of stuff I got to do videos on. On top of that, we're getting ready for M-Wave, which is happening literally in a couple months. There's just way too much going on in my life to be able to do that. But if you're in Florida, man, hit me up. Reach out to me, michael@youthbandreviews.com. I would love for somebody to begin to MA. You're in West Palm Beach, man, Spring Hill. So see, you guys are here, man. You represent. So I would love to see somebody kind of head this up and begin to do what Ryan and Jonathan have in their areas. And that's kind of scheduling once a month meetups, and you just organize it. We can do it. We've got my Discord server. We can do it through that. I've actually got a dedicated Discord server for the Florida Home Theater Tour is what I called it. But I just don't spend, poor Michael swimming in AV gear. You're right, Rex. It's crazy, man. It's a rough life, I tell you. But I would love to see somebody kind of head that up and say, look, man, let's just have this conversation. Let's see who's going to host this month and next month. I'll be glad to host one month, but I can't be the one driving that and kind of making sure that that works. So we got Josh down in Miami. So we definitely got lots of folks. So if you are, let me see. How would I do this? I guess I would just throw the invite over here. I'll tell you what, just shoot me an email, michael@youthmanreviews.com. I'll send you a link to the Florida Discord group. Again, I'd love to see somebody head that up. Orlando, see you guys, man. Let's make this happen. Word to the Florida boys. That's right. So, but there's my Florida bumps. I love it. So yeah, so if somebody would be willing to head that up and just be the main guy that says, okay, here's the schedule and you're communicating. And so Discord's evil, keeps me occupied all day. I'm never there, man. I got way too much going on in my life. But yeah, man, I would love for that to happen. Like what these guys are talking about, just getting together, listen to each other's systems, talking about things like calibration, making connections, making some friendships, and learning together and helping each other spend our money. So they do a lot of that in y'all's area.
Just
right?
Move.
What's that?
Just got to move to Kansas City.
I got to move to Kansas City. Oh, mercy. All right, here we go. That's a great question, Peyton. Appreciate that. Finster, what's up, buddy? So my mains have two 6.5-inch bass drivers in each speaker. Should I go for a 6.5-inch driver in my side surrounds or jump up to 8-inch? Same speaker brand, changing from on-wall bipoles to in-wall monopole surrounds. My thought is I don't think it matters as much as the size of the drivers. I don't think you necessarily need to step up to 8-inch drivers for your surrounds. Is that going to be a bad thing? No. But I don't think you're going to be like, oh my goodness, I hear a massive difference, going from a 6.5-inch to an 8.5-inch or 8-inch driver for your in-walls. I think what you're going to find is probably similar to what I found going from the bipoles surround to a, I guess what I would call a direct radiating, where the sound is just coming in a straight pattern. I think that's going to make the biggest difference in your setup, especially when you get into object placement and things like that in your immersive formats. That was a huge upgrade for me. Now, granted, I was going from a lower end speaker to a much higher end speaker too. So there was kind of a dual fold change in my setup, but I don't think that the 6.5 versus 8-inch, I don't think that's really going to be a massive determining factor. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Ryan.
I think it's dependent on how loud you listen.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So if he's really cranking it,
there's two things that could be a factor here: how loud you listen, and where you want your crossover set at. Because the larger driver, depending on what all else being equal, and if the drivers are the same, just one's larger, typically the larger driver is going to be able to go lower in the frequency range. So theoretically allowing you to go at a lower crossover point. The other benefit is, since it's a larger driver, it should be able to get to a higher volume level without distorting. So those two things being considered, if you don't listen at a really loud volume and you're constrained by maybe your front crossover point, I don't know what your crossover point is on those front speakers. Let's say it's 80 hertz. I wouldn't think a 6.5-inch driver on the sides is going to have a problem. It just depends on the speaker. With a crossover of 80 hertz, that should be okay. But those are two things that you definitely want to consider. I'd be curious to know what speakers you're actually looking at.
Yeah, let us know, Finster, what you're checking out. I just don't think that from a 6.5 to, I've had 6.5 pretty much my entire. I went from a 6.5 to a 10-inch. So that was a massive jump for me, but I never once felt like, oh man, my 6.5s just aren't cutting it. They were plenty loud enough in my room.
You don't usually listen at reference though either, right, Michael?
That's true. That is true. Okay. So that is true. And my room isn't super big either.
Because I had a big difference going to the C100s on my ceiling and doubling up on the 6.5-inch driver and then the larger air gap tweeter. It made a big difference.
That's one thing I wasn't thinking about. My room is actually relatively small. It's not a huge room, and I'm only sitting, let's say, 8 feet from my speakers.
There's a great forum thread on AVS that's basically a list of reference capable speakers.
Okay.
And they've kind of taken like a traditional distance of like, say, 10 foot for your speakers. And that doesn't, for smaller rooms, it's going to be not as important. But generally speaking, the generic consensus is, if you take a list of all the models they're looking at, you kind of need to get to an 8 to have true reference capable volumes in a home theater room, in a typical home theater room.
Okay.
So if you don't listen at reference, or if your
Right.
room's smaller, you got a little bit more leeway.
Okay.
But there is some legitimacy. That extra inch and a half is gives you enough output to kind of hit that target if you care about that target.
Well, let's math this up. What's the surface area comparison here? So
I think there's a calculator online for it, but I don't remember the name. It's
just
probably
looking at
bigger
the-
than what you think. It might be 30% or
so
something.
a 6.5 inch surface area is, hold on, I didn't specify inches.
So while you do that, I'll read. Fencer said he has the Paradigm 800Fs up front, and he's looking at the Paradigm CI Pro in walls. You guys looked at them a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I remember looking at those.
So 6.5 is 33.2 inches.
Okay.
Surface area, and we go to an 8.
Oh, I thought you were saying it was 30% bigger.
It is. If we go to an 8, it's 50.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So what is that? So I said 32.
Learn
what did
something.
I say?
Hey, Jonathan, I come on my own show and learn something every stinking week.
33.2. So then if you do.
Oh, this is interesting too. So here's a good thought. You would need better tweeters.
34% larger
34%?
surface area.
Okay.
From 1.5 inches and a larger
So
diameter.
would he need better speakers in the same regard, or are tweeters just easier to drive than the woofers would be?
No, traditionally the 1-inch soft dome tweeters that are on a lot of these speakers can't do reference anyway.
No.
So you got to keep that in mind. If you're just buying like a run-of-the-mill bookshelf, like all the ones Ryan was kind of mentioned for our M-Wave demonstration, for your those standard 1-inch tweeters can't do true reference.
Nope.
They'll overheat, they'll make bad sounds, they'll run out of gas.
They'll flop around like dead fish.
So you need multiples, or you need like a high compression driver or a coax or something, basically a high efficiency driver instead of the standard tweeter. So with that in mind, maybe you take this thing as a whole and you say, look, if my tweeter can't do it, I don't care if my 8-inch or 6.5 can do it, because it's not the only limitation. But
it doesn't matter.
But he's asking the question, so we can give him a good answer on it. And I would recommend you go check out that thread. I'll dig it up, and then I'll have Michael link it for you.
Yeah, super cool, man.
And don't give me. I'm gonna kind of
drop it in the chat, Jonathan.
Piggyback on what
Jonathan
said.
Put a link in there, but I'll give it to you.
I made you.
I'll try.
Yeah, drop it in there, man. Drop it like it's hot, man.
Just because a speaker can't hit reference doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad speaker. It just depends on what your listening habits are.
Yeah.
That's what's going to matter.
Yeah.
So you want to find a speaker that fits your listening characteristics and matches well. If you're not going to reference, like in Michael's case, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I'm usually 10, sometimes 15 dB below reference.
Just things to consider.
Yeah. Here's a good thought too. Apparently, bigger surrounds are the way to go with the new Dirac Active.
Yes.
So that might be another thing to take into
help.
consideration too.
I put it in chat, Michael. I don't seem to have the rights to post a comment in there. We can talk about that after the show, but I don't see it.
That's so lame.
So I put it in private. You'll have to put it in public.
I'm gonna put both of these because I think Jonathan posted 2 comments.
Well, the first one was regarding IMAX Enhanced, so that one's back an hour.
We'll drop that in there. Those of you guys are watching on the replay, and then another one here. Copy that one, and we'll drop that in the chat as well. We appreciate you finding that. Great question, man. Grave Danger says, are we going to see... Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on, Grave. Let me come right back to you if you don't mind. I did see a super chat, and I don't want to forget that. Let me drop up. I got to find it. I think it changed colors because, you popped it up and then it pulled it away. Chris Stovall, appreciate the $5 super chat. Would the JTR 110 HT be good for mains if I can't afford the 210 RMs right now? So the 110 HTs are basically the same thing that I have. They're just not the slants, and they're a coaxial driver. You got a 10-inch kind of mid-range, mid-bass. They don't dig super deep, but you're going to cross that over to your, to your subwoofer anyway. As long as you got capable subwoofers, absolutely. I don't see why. I'm going to pull this up, JTR 110. Let's go here. We'll take a look at it together.
80 hertz crossover.
Yeah, like I said, they're not going to dig super deep.
or 80 hertz for the lower.
Let's take a look at them. So I have the slants here. So you're talking about these right here. So 10-inch mid-range, 2-way, 1-inch compression driver.
You might have to kind of even explain the design a little bit, Michael,
Okay.
for people at home who think like,
Sure.
where's the tweeter?
Yeah, good question. So if you look at the speaker, there's the big 10-inch is going to play kind of like your lower frequencies. Now in this case, we see down here, this speaker is only rated down to about 80 hertz. So it doesn't dig super deep. It's not meant to. It's meant to have high output. But right in the center, where you would normally have like your dust cap, usually there's like a little cover right there to keep dust from going in there. You can see right in that hole. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Oh, there we go. Yeah, now you can see it. So right inside that little hole is a tweeter. And so that compression driver is going to handle the mid-range and the high frequencies. And that is time aligned with that woofer. And so to me, it's a great design. I think that'd make a killer LCR. Like I said, it's just not going to dig real deep. So you may have to set your crossover to like, I don't know, like what, maybe 90 hertz?
You're probably going to extend down below 80 with room gain.
Okay.
I would
so
imagine.
They might still be able to get away with 80. So 80, 90 hertz. But I think it would still make a great system regardless.
What's the sensitivity on those, and what's the
super high
power need? I think it's like 100 something.
Let's see. Since it's 95 dB with one, well, I don't understand this. But I'm guessing it's kind of like 1 watt, 1 meter.
That's the standard for 1 watt, 2.83 volts. That's normal.
So I mean, with 1 watt, you're getting 95 dB.
And they're 8 ohms, and their maximum power handling is 750 watts.
And you're getting 124 dB, 127 dB. I mean, come on. You can feed this joker more power than you can. Yeah,
that drive you out of the room loud.
Well, you remember when Michael brought that 8-inch version over to my house a couple of years ago?
It was the 10. He had the early run of these 10s.
It was stupid loud.
Oh yeah. They can go incredibly loud.
Yeah, James.
I mean, loud enough that you most people on this audience have probably never heard something that loud. To be honest, at one of our subwoofer meets, Jeff, the owner of JTR, brought over a couple of the single 8s, which are the same design as that, but 2 inches smaller.
Right.
And he had a big couple 1,000-watt amp on them, and he just drove the pair to like all they were worth. There's very few times in my life where I felt like the speaker sounds clear, but my eardrum is rupturing.
Wow.
My eardrum is not. Yeah. My eardrum is distorting it, and that's where it was with the single 8s, and then 10s more so. They had just stupid capability.
And then take his 410s with the 21-inch wave-guided horn and 10-inch mids. So imagine having 4 of those 10-inch drivers on one speaker.
Yeah,
Jeff is just bonkers
yeah,
when it comes to these types of speakers. And if you guys are coming to M-Wave, you're going to be able to see this stuff.
Yeah,
I'm excited
he's going to bring a whole series. And in fact, I'll pull it up and I'll show you what he's bringing. He's bringing. Let me go back to my screen here, because this is crazy. All right, let me zoom out just a little bit, make it easier. One more time. All right. So he is bringing, is it the 212 RTs? I believe.
I think so.
Ryan, take a look at the website if you don't mind. I'm wanting to say, and just correct me. It's easier for him. If not, then I got to bounce back and forth between here. I'll find it. Watch this. Midwest. AV
I don't even know where to look.
I know. That's why I'm going there, because I'm like, why did I ask him to do that?
JTR.
So we go to brands.
He's bringing the 212 RTs.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I'm giving correct information. So we're talking 212.
7 of them.
Yeah.
That's going to be phenomenal.
So 7 bed layer towers, 3-way design, dual 12-inch, compression drivers, massive horn. These things are, I've heard Tony Salk has, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know he's got 5 of these in his room. So he's got the LCR.
And the LCR.
Right. And then the front wides. And I haven't been there since he's made some other changes. So he may even have some in the back now. But he's going to have 7 of those. Then we're going to have 4 JTR Captivator 4000 ULF subwoofers. So I have these, the Captivator RS2s. So that's the sealed version.
Weak.
Yeah, that's like weak sauce. This is the monster. So look at this thing. This thing is stinking insane. He's bringing 4 of these. So these are they're tuned to 10.5 hertz. So you're
They'll
gonna
go
get
lower than
plenty
that
of,
with room gain, though.
yeah, they're tuned to 10. Mine are flat down to 5, 4,000 watt continuous. These things weigh 265 pounds each. I mean, the dimensions on this is 41 inches by 20.5 inches by 40 inches. That's insane, man.
I'm still second guessing. Should I be second guessing that I'm going to have 5 of these in my room?
Yes.
What are you thinking, man? So anyway, so he's gonna have 4 of those, and then for heights,
Those
we're gonna-
110 HTs.
he's gonna
that
be
we just talked
running.
about.
I think is he doing the slants or no? He's doing the regulars.
No,
I think
it's the regulars.
All right, so he's gonna be doing 6 of these in ceiling, the 110 HTs. So that's gonna be a killer setup. Can't wait for you guys to hear that. It's gonna be phenomenal.
One of the guys said in chat he'd never heard an Atmos system before. And if he's going to M-Wave, that's going to be a treat.
This is going to blow your mind.
Well, here's the thing. So here's one of the reasons why I told Ryan last year I would love to have. I mean, we had 7 bed layers last year in the demo room.
Yes.
And that's cool and everything, but I'm like, man, I know there's a lot of guys that have not heard. They may have even heard an Atmos system, but they weren't real impressed with it. And the biggest reason, it just wasn't set up correctly. It doesn't mean you have to have something as high end as JTR. We're going to have some Atmos systems from SVS, super affordable. We're going to have hopefully an Atmos system from Per Listen. So that's on up there. You got JTR.
Oh, there's not a hopefully, it's happening.
Well, but I'm just saying, like they haven't guaranteed me that they haven't given me all the specs like Jeff has.
Oh, there haven't been the specs, but it's happening. I mean, that's happening. So like the S7Ts up front, I think it's probably going to be the S5Ms, I think, in the surrounds.
Yeah.
And then we're not sure what's going to be the tops.
Yeah.
Because that's still up in the air. And I think if we can bring their Munich system, it's going to be 6 subs.
Right. And so that's part of the heartbeat of M-Wave. We want to give you a chance to experience something that you haven't had a chance to experience. And for some of you guys, it's to experience a full, really well-designed Dolby Atmos system. And then you just figure out, you scale it down to whatever your room will allow for, and you scale it to your budget. It doesn't have to be something that costs, $30,000 just for your speakers, So, but anyway, so that's going to be awesome. We're excited for it. 7215 RTs at Axpona. Yeah. So Jeff had the full setup, the setup that he was doing at Axpona. He had purchased for that event, I always want to call it truss. Is it truss? Okay. Mm-hmm. So he purchased this truss system so he could hang his Atmos speakers, his height speakers above, and he's bringing that entire system. And then what we're doing for the other rooms is we're basically trying to outfit those with a similar setup to where we can actually mount the projector up there, mount the speakers up there. And so it's going to be sweet, man. I'm telling you, I am super pumped for this. So if you guys are, I don't even want to say in the Kansas City area, I want you to get your butt on a plane, come join us. I'm flying from Florida, July 14th to the 16th. I promise you, this is an AV show that you've never experienced. I promise you. We're busting our butt. We're talking with some great brands. We forgot to mention this. One of the rooms is going to be a Cedia built room. And what I mean by that is there are about 5 different brands that have already partnered for Cedia. And so that's a trade show typically for people like Ryan.
So that's going to be Storm, Per Listen, Mad VR, Seymour,
and
Barco, Row 1.
Okay.
So
those 6 brands are coming together and they're building out this beautiful, crazy high-end theater for Cedia. And I was talking with Evan from Seymour, and he's like, what if we put that together at M-Wave? Wouldn't that be cool? I'm like, heck yeah, that'd be cool. Make it happen.
I think they're talking about doing over a 200-inch screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Evan originally they spec'd out a small one. He's like, man, I really want to bring one of our big screens. I want to show people what does a big, humongous, immersive experience look like? Yeah. K-scape as well. Yep. So it's going to be awesome, guys. So if you can make it, man, sell a kidney. I promise you only need
I
one.
thought he was going to say sell a kid.
No, don't sell your kids. Your kids are valuable. Now, if you got animals, yeah, sell them things. I'm kidding. But you guys got some stuff in your garage, and you hadn't used them forever. You got old speakers lying around that you're never going to hook back up. Sell them things. Get them on Craigslist. Come hang out with us. It's going to be a blast.
I got one more thing to add on that.
Yeah.
That Exponent show demo, the 215 RTs.
Yeah.
So I was there at one of the auditions for that, and it's the only audition that I was in on all of Exponent for both years that I was there, where people stood up and clapped. It was like a standing ovation after the demo session for those 215 RTs. That was pretty cool. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's super, super cool. Robert asked a question: is anyone going to Infocom? I've been a couple years, but it's mainly geared for like the pro audio side of it. So even the brands that I went to look, they were like, say for instance, Klipsch was there, and I went and checked out their booth, and all they had was like outdoor stuff, outdoor speakers. They didn't have anything home theater related. So I was like, so I've been 2 years, and so I probably won't be able to to go there. All right, let's head on back up here.
Now look at this. Look at this. While you're still on the topic of rooms.
Yeah, do it.
So this guy says, hey, I want to see a room built with mere mortal money. I don't want to see a room that's $50,000 or $100,000 because I can't afford it, or I don't want to afford it.
SVS.
Yeah. So what do you got in that ballpark?
SVS.
Yeah, I don't know what what that package would run you, but SVS is super, super affordable. Another one that is considering, is it Q Acoustics?
That's probably going to be 2-channel, but yes.
Okay. I was about to say, but that's
super
another
affordable
brand
with really good sounding speakers.
Yeah, so they're going to be there as well. So I'm with you, man. I don't want it to just be high end stuff, but a lot of times with the higher end brands have a little bit more funds to work with to be able to put together a big home theater. But man, I would love.
What if Monoprice? Could you get Hobby to put together like a THX in-wall system in one of the rooms? Would he do it?
Obi is great. It's just,
I think he's overwhelmed. It's one of the things where he's running Monolith or Monolith brand within Monoprice, and I think that'd be really hard for him to come out.
Monoprice has a lot going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on top of that, he would and I don't know this for a fact, but it's difficult to do something like that just by yourself. So he would definitely need to bring a couple of employees to be able to set that up, to calibrate it, to build out the room, especially if you're doing a whole Dolby Atmos. But yeah, you're right. That'd be another great option for you. I mean, see, look right here. Marv says, my living room theater, 7.2.4, costs less than $5,000 with youth band deals.
Yep.
A lot of great options out there. Monoprice THX is a good value. Aaron from Aaron's Audio Corner, he'll be joining us here probably pretty shortly. And he actually has reviewed the Monolith THX speakers. He's got some actual measurements on his website. And so absolutely check those out. Klipsch is relatively affordable. Ryan says, absolutely. There's a lot of great options. So you definitely don't have to spend a fortune. Polk Audio has some great in their the Reserve series. That's very affordable. We're going to have some of the Reserve bookshelves at M-Wave for you guys to listen to. So Serwin Vega, I don't think they're ever coming back. I mean, I know you guys are hanging on to them from the 90s, but I promise you, I just don't think that Serwin Vegas are in the running anymore. I think that train shut down a long time ago. They were the bomb though back in the day, man. I'll tell you, we didn't have anything.
I don't know. You could go PA rig and something like Crown amps. Man, that in and of itself can get really expensive depending on if you're getting like older used gear. It can be beneficial in budget, but that can get really. Crown isn't necessarily cheap.
Yeah,
neither's PA gear.
Yeah,
but you could if you're going youth band deals for sure.
Yeah, Brandon's got some great deals on eBay, he said. So absolutely, man. There's so many ways that you can build a system without going crazy, stupid, over the top on the amount of money that you spend. And that's one thing that I've always tried to encourage you guys from my channel. I truly believe that all of us can have a cool home theater, regardless of the space that we have. I've seen a gentleman put together a dedicated home theater in a 12 by 12 foot bedroom. He had a 120-inch screen diagonal. He had 1 row of 4 seating. You couldn't get behind it, but he had 4 row seating. He has a 18-inch infinite baffle subwoofer in the front, which means the rear of that subwoofer is in the adjacent room, like just open air. So that's intriguing. He had, I think, 2 15s behind the seats, acoustic treatment. It was Harry Potter themed. You would never know that this room like wasn't a dedicated theater room. You'd never guess opening up that room. Oh, this is a bedroom that somebody converted. He had a projector, Epson projector, very budget friendly projector. Dude, that system was killer, man. In-wall speakers, I think from Triad. And so, man, there's just so many ways that you can do that. So I'm truly an advocate for you guys. And we definitely want to encourage you to build your home theater regardless of your budget, regardless of your space that you've got it put in. So go for it, man. Hi-Fi Highness. Oh, gosh. I said Highness. Hi-Fi Highness. Hi-Finest. Actually, it's not even, there's a Hi-Fi. I guess it kind of blends together. Hi-Finest 343 says, I appreciate the $10 super chat, by the way. Explain to me why my left corner loaded sealed sub is set to positive, like 0 degrees phase, while my right sub, not corner, open to the kitchen, sounds best with an inverted signal. Interesting. So he's got a net output is higher like this. So what he's talking about is on the back of a subwoofer, you have, usually it's either a toggle switch that goes from 0 to maybe 180 degree phase, or sometimes there's a variable phase adjustment. So you can go from 0, like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, all the way up to 180. And what he's saying is he switches one of those switches on the right, say the right subwoofer. And by doing so, having one out of phase, he actually gets more output. And that's interesting because typically you only hear of maybe like, say, one's in the front of the room and one's in the back room. So what are your thoughts on that? Why would he get, I mean, is that normal? Is that common? Does it have anything to do with it not having some, boundary gain from being in a corner?
I have ideas, but we're missing some information.
Okay.
So if you ran auto EQ and your receiver set distance settings and they're actually set, then you could physically have a wiring problem. Like I've seen that happen on speakers and subwoofers, both at people's houses, red wires to black and black wires to red. And it's an accident to the factory wiring.
Okay.
If you haven't run auto EQ and set distances, then that phase acts like a time alignment. So you very well may just be aligning them properly by doing that. And then also you really need to do, and you didn't put this information in there, you might have already done it, but you really need to do like a frequency response sweep. And you need to turn off smoothing, and you need to see what your level is at the crossover point where your subs and your speakers integrate, and you need to do it one sub at a time. And then once you validated that both subs are in phase with your mains, that you don't have a real steep, narrow dip at the crossover point, once you validated they're both that way, then play the 2 subs together and make sure that you get about a 3 dB increase off the single. And then you know that you're all aligned. So there's not enough information for us to tell you what's wrong. There may
Are
be
these the same
wrong.
sub too?
Right.
If you're going sealed and ported, you could introduce some issues there as well that may require some phase changes.
Yeah, he said both subs are on the front stage flanked by the mains.
Yeah, they're integrating subs and things like that. There's so many variables, especially with the room. I'd like to know what the subs are. Time alignment can be a big deal when it comes into this. There's a lot of questions.
Yeah,
there's a lot of complexities.
Give us some more context, Hi-Finest, in the chat, and we'll come back to it. Ty, appreciate the $5 super chat. He says, I'm considering using a JVC DLA X550 for $800. Man, that's a great price. Y'all think it's a good deal? Any experience with this model? Thanks, guys. Love this podcast. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate the love.
What are you upgrading from? That's my biggest question.
Okay, so what's he upgrading from? So I'm not familiar with that particular model. $800 is not a ton of money in today's, when you're looking at especially new JVC projectors. Man, that's sweet price. As far as like, is that a good deal?
1700 lumens,
Epson
40,000
3020
contrast.
is what he has now.
Epson, which one?
3020.
Okay.
Came out in 2015, the one he's talking about. 1080p, 4K E-shift. I wonder what the RS equivalent is on it.
That's going to be a contrast monster.
That one is the 550.
Thanks, 550
Okay.
first. I'm trying to figure out what the RS number is on it because I'm more familiar with the RS lines for that.
It's
So is that a
DILA.
400? Is it a 400?
I don't know.
X5500 is the same as RS 420, so that's not. He said 550.
500. Okay.
Not 5500, I guess.
When in doubt, there is an AVS post for it.
Oh yeah,
So-
Owner's Thread would be a good place to go.
Is it the 550R?
He just says X550, DLA X550.
So I think it's the equivalent to the RS 400.
Okay.
We had one of those on our projector shootout in January,
Yep,
didn't we?
It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Came
If you're
out.
running Mad VR, let's put a asterisk by it.
Okay. It.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's why I'm laughing. Yes, it came
was
out
that
in
the
2016. The reason
2015, I think. But go ahead.
this says this post says 2016. It probably came out in 2015.
Okay.
I don't know. Just going on what it says. If this is the same similar projector, which I think it is, it has some shortcomings, but it also has some positives. Let's focus on the positives first. If you can give it a video processor for HDR, it is a contrast monster, meaning it is going to very easily compete with things exorbitantly more expensive, as long as you're not on a very big screen. So when we did this in the shootout, and my room was not fully like blacked out, there were white walls, but the front was velvet. When we did this in January of 22 at that projector shootout, the RS, I think it was a 420, was able to compete with and beat in some tests a JVC NZ8. And granted, this was on a 100-inch screen, so we were playing to the brightness characteristics of the 420 at that point, or in this case, the 550, because they're, well, the 400 is the 550. This would be the 570. But it was able to best the NZ8 in several scenarios because of its better contrast. Now, if you made the screen larger, it's going to start to fall apart because it doesn't have the lumens to be able to keep up with the NZ8. The other things that it struggles with, it's a 2K panel or 1K shifted panel.
1080p
1080p
E-shift.
shifted. Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's 2K.
It'd be
And then
E-shift
it's
3, maybe. Is that right? I think it's third. I think it's third generation JVC
That I
E-shift.
don't
but
know.
Go ahead.
So it's falls flat in lumens. Its tone mapping is horrendous on its own.
It's doo-doo.
It is horrendous. And then it has some issues.
For HDR, you might even need to explain what tone mapping is.
So for HDR, for high dynamic range, it does great in SDR. But for HDR, when you're watching HDR content, it is not great. So it's going to have some serious issues in being able to tone map, meaning color values and light values that are above what the projector can normally handle. They have to be mapped down to a way the projector can try and show them closer to their native, how they should be shown on a actual display that would be able to do them on its own. It doesn't do that very well. The other issue that it has is it takes a very long time to sync. So its sync times are very,
Measured
very
in
slow.
minutes.
Yes.
Thank
So if you're
God.
changing content constantly, it is not fast. But
It's gonna be frustrating.
if you're able to bypass all of those shortcomings, it is a phenomenally hardware capable projector that can keep up with things if you supplement its shortcomings very well. So that's
if
my-
he wanted to expand his budget a little bit, would that be kind of like our go-to, like the 5040 from Epson?
yeah.
Would that be an upgrade?
You lose the contrast, but I think it does better.
Tricky call. Depends on what you're
Yeah.
after. It's
Okay.
it's that whole black floor versus not conversation.
Yeah,
that we had a
because
bunch of times.
that projector's black floor is
it's really
amazing.
strong.
It's
Yeah.
really good. Really
I've
good.
seen some older JVC projectors that people have picked up for like pennies, and they're still gorgeous, man.
They are
the
really
reality,
good.
they're still really, really sharp. So I'm a fan even of older ones, but as you can imagine, technology and projectors changes pretty, I mean, not rapidly, but there's definitely some great advancements as you get to some of the newer projectors. So definitely, hopefully that answers your question. Erin, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
What's up? I'm good, man. How are y'all?
Let me see if I can, I'm just going to turn one on. There's not a way to like turn one off. So cool, man. Erin from Erin's Audio Corner. You guys are familiar with him. So
Probably not.
taking care of
Probably
family
not.
business tonight. We told the folks you'd be joining us in later. So how are you, man?
I'm good, man. I just dropped my daughter off. She served my butt at Mario Kart 8 twice.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah, I was talking trash, man. And she was just like, what were you saying a minute ago? I said, I can still ground you. And she said, you can't ground me during the week because she's with her mom during the week. I said, I can call your mom and we can work something out.
That's hilarious.
And she beat you?
Nice.
Dude, she beat me and she's talking trash to me right back. So I don't know what to do anymore, man.
But she gets that from her
I'm gonna
dad,
applaud
dude.
her.
Yeah, she does. I think she gets that from. I can't complain. She's pretty much me. She's just a smarter version, which isn't too hard, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
How are
super
y'all?
cool, man. We're good. So you know Ryan, of course. Have you met Jonathan?
I have not.
We've had some exchanges on the forum over the years, but I've never met you in face to face as much as this is anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's
nice
just
to
as
meet you.
sketchy in person
Right.
as he is over on the AVS forum. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we all are, man.
So those of you who aren't familiar, Erin has an incredible channel called Erin's Audio Corner on YouTube, but he's also got a great website, and I've linked both of those down in the description. So after this, definitely go show him some love. So Erin, you take a little bit different approach when it comes to reviewing gear. You review a lot of different things. You've kind of taken a little hiatus for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think you mention you are working on a video currently?
I am. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm working on the review portion of a video, but I haven't decided if I just want to just flip the switch and go live and start doing reviews that way, or if I want to go through the trouble of editing them. But I'm getting close to having one probably this week is what I'm hoping.
Awesome. So Erin is way more on the objective measurement side of reviews. Erin's got some incredible tools. One of the tools he has is a device called a Clipple. And he has the Clipple where at?
It's in my do I call it my den? I guess it's my den. Yeah.
It was kind of like where he removed his dining room table and put it right in the middle of it.
Literally.
He used to have it in his garage. So he's moved to a new place.
Yep.
So he's still in transition, but he's got this thing set up. And what does the Clipple allow you to do?
It's a worthless piece of gear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it fits perfectly in there too. So the Clipple will allow me to measure speakers anechoically, which means anechoic means without echo, right? So without any reverberation or any reflection or anything like that. The reason you want to do that is because you want to know what the speaker is doing before you even put it into a room. And people will say, well, it doesn't matter because the room is going to dictate everything. That's not entirely true. Generally speaking, the room dictates the response below about 400, 500 hertz. And the lower in frequency you get, the more the room dominates what you hear. But above that frequency, of that transition frequency, the speaker itself is more responsible for what you're actually hearing in the room. And the cool thing about measuring the speaker isn't that you just measure it on axis. You measure it all the way around the speaker, to the side, behind it, above it, below it. And in doing so, you can get a really, really good idea of how the speaker is actually going to perform in most rooms, right? Like, I mean, there are probably going to be some exceptions to that. But generally speaking, what I've found is that the estimated in-room response, which is built from the profile of all the on-axis sound and the off-axis sound, that estimated in-room response lines up very, very well to a measurement taken in-room, in situ, like in your seat. So if you take a microphone, you wave it around your face, those two line up very, very well. I've been doing this for about 3 years now, and I'd say the vast majority of speakers that I measure anechoically, I can tell you how they're going to sound in the room most of the time without even having to listen to them in the room. Some of that is based on experience from measuring and then looking at the data, or I guess I should say a lot of that is. But after a while, you get to the point where you start to understand the things that you want to look for. I'll go ahead and capture the side of the argument where people say, well, I don't listen with measurements, I listen with my ears. Well, me too. The measurements are a good way to understand what the speaker is doing. So let's say that you don't for whatever reason, you don't subscribe to the ideal speaker terminology, it's still good to know what the speaker is doing before you put it into your room. If, for instance, you like a particular sound for whatever reason, you can know if that speaker has that particular sound or not. So all of that basically is just a great way to say that it's a really fun way to provide objective data for a review rather than just saying, hey, trust my ears, because we all know that people prefer things differently. Correct. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of the reviews and things like that I've seen over the years, I'll be politically correct. I just don't buy into
he's
them.
trying not to point me out is what he's trying to do.
No, it's not even so much that. It's just there's a lot of stuff out there in the review space that I don't really care for. Yeah, sure. So a lot of product selling, you know, sometimes, and I do this too. I get stuff in from manufacturers, and we are an extension of their marketing side, right? To some degree, we really are. And what I like to do is, and that's the reason why I like having the data. So if somebody says, well, you know, I don't agree with you, cool, we'll go look at the data. You don't listen to anything I say, just go look at the data. Exactly. Right. I'll show you my clip while you show me yours. So
that's a whole different meaning to bringing out the measuring tape, man. Yeah. That's on a different scale.
So the problem with most measuring tapes is I think they cut off at like 20 feet or something like that. And so I run out of measuring tape before I'm done. You know, that's like I have to go to Home Depot if I want to measure it and to get like a couple of measuring tapes lined up together.
Taken out of context, this is a really interesting conversation.
So the last part is supposed to be taken out of context.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
All right. Just making sure.
So the cool thing, so as you can see, Erin is a wealth of knowledge, and I love the fact that he has entered this space a couple years ago. Yeah. And he's decided to make content for you guys. And so if you're not familiar with his channel, definitely head over to Erin's Audio Corner, subscribe. He's got some incredible information. He's cranking out some new videos, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And on his website, AaronsAudioCorner.com, you'll find even some more in-depth information sometimes than what he puts in his reviews on YouTube. And so make sure you kind of check both of those out. And he's also, of course, got a Patreon channel that he shares some information with them as well. So, but man,
thanks for the plug, man. That was good.
And Erin, you're going to try and clipple everything that we're going to use for the speaker comparisons.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
We need to have that on a shirt.
Just clipple it.
Has it been clippled? Yeah.
Yeah. So Erin's going to be joining us for M-Wave this year. So we're super excited to have you there.
Yeah,
man.
dude. I'm really looking forward to that. I appreciate the offer for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be a nice opportunity to get away for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure, man. Well, we've got some great questions here. Unless there's something else you want to kind of mention before we jump back to those.
Dude, I feel like I've said way too much about myself already. Like it's like those job interviews you go to and they say, tell us why we should hire you. And it's like, oh, this is awkward. You want me to brag on myself? Okay. Yeah. This is weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a lot of love for you in the chats. I appreciate you sharing your love for Erin over there.
Yeah, this is probably the most important question of the night right here.
All right, let me go down to it. Give me a second.
It's on the screen, man.
This stems from how did I do it the first time? So when I still don't know. I think it's Jamo, right?
I don't think it is.
We don't know. We're all.
Oh my god!
I think it's Jamo.
Oh, so that's what got me in trouble. I watched some videos of my first Jamo. I'm calling it Jamo tonight. Tomorrow may be different. I watched some videos before I posted my video of a speaker of theirs that I reviewed a few years ago, and I called it Yamo because that's what a couple people at least were calling it in their videos. So I was like, that's it. And then I had so many people saying, you're saying it wrong, you're pronouncing it wrong. So then I switched over to Jamo in my more recent ones.
Right.
And then so many people were saying, you're saying it wrong. Like, I don't freaking know.
Nobody really knows the correct pronunciation. Interesting.
I have no idea, man. It's like Arundel, Arundel. Who knows, man.
Right. You know what's what's interesting is there was, and I'm trying to remember the brand, but I'm watching their videos like on their YouTube channel, and they themselves were pronouncing their brand two different ways. And I'm like, dude, that is messed up. I cannot remember. If I think of it, I'll let you know. Yeah. But that's crazy that sometimes the manufacturers, even when they have different people representing their brand, doing, talking about their new products and things, I'm like, really? That's interesting. That is super cool, man.
That's a good
one. Appreciate the $20 super chat Rashad says Arundel. That's how I call it, Arundel. Some people say Arundel, Arundel.
I can't remember how to pronounce it.
I'm gonna say Arundel. So Arundel, if you're listening and I pronounce wrong, forgive me. So the 1723 bed layer and 1723S for heights. His space is about 3,300 square feet, 4,300 square feet with a hallway and the stairways. He's got a big room. He listens at greater than reference. All right. So
big room. That's like larger than my house.
If you had to choose and have no regrets, what are your thoughts between two Captivator 2400s or two RS2s? And these are from JTR.
If that room is not cubic feet in its actual square footage, I don't know that two RS2s are going to be big enough.
Yeah, that's a warehouse.
That is huge.
So let us know, Rashad, is that cubic feet that you mean, or square feet?
To put this in perspective, the rooms at M-Wave,
tell us your dimensions of your room.
28 feet by 40 feet, and they're like 1,400 square feet.
Okay, so he says cubic feet, not square feet.
All right, that's that's better.
So 3,300 cubic feet, 4,300 cubic feet with the hallway and the stairway, because there's some, it's not a totally enclosed room. So if he's got that, can he get away with two RS2s? Can he do two Captivator 2400s?
I think he might want to move up to the Cap 4000s.
4,000 ULFs?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a little bit more money, but
would he need two? Would two of those be sufficient?
Define sufficient. Define sufficient. Yeah. Yes. The answer is yes. For most people, it would be sufficient.
His room is about the same size as my room.
Okay, and you're in dimensions. What are we talking about?
15 feet by 28 foot by 8 foot.
Okay.
So 15 feet wide, 28 feet long, and 8 foot tall.
Okay.
Roughly. By no means do you need to kill yourself and break your spine with 5 Captivators.
Yeah.
I think you would.
2 of them is plenty. And
yeah,
if it's your room size, you were shaking the couches real nicely with 2 of them.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
But I think he'd probably be okay with 2 RS2s at that point.
I think so. Yeah.
But it's not a sealed room. So he's not going to benefit from the low frequency stuff because it's not a sealed room.
Yeah.
He's got hallway and stairway.
Do you think the Captivator's extra 6 dB is going to help him over? Do you think it's needed over the 2400?
If I was in that type of space, I would probably choose ported if you're just doing 2 of either.
No, I meant, do you think the extra 6 dB that this 4000 offers over the 2400 is worth it?
Is that what it is? Is it a 6 dB?
I don't know. I just took doubling the driver and double the amp. That was just off the top of my head guess. I have no idea.
Can we get real dimensions instead of just square feet? Because I don't know if he's in a tiny room with real tall ceilings.
Let us know the exact measurements of your room. That would be super helpful.
If it's open floor plan though, fellas, like we've talked about this before, and I've had a lot of experience. You could put a couple big, massive sealed subs in there. You're still not going to get low frequencies. You got to have a lot. You got to have quantity. You got to have quantity of sealed subwoofers if you're trying to chase those like 5-10 hertz frequencies. And you're not going to do it with 2. You're just not going to do it. So you probably just want the extra output from the ported. And those JTRs aren't ported high. They're ported at like 10 hertz, 12 hertz, whatever it is. Yeah, it's not like you're giving up stuff. It's mostly a win-win for that and that lineup.
So I'm not sure what this means. You guys help me out with this. 14-foot XM. Okay, here we go. There it is. So he's got 14 foot by 28 foot with 8.5 foot. So it's roughly about the size of Ryan's setup.
Just a little bit taller ceilings.
But he's got a kind of not an open floor plan, but it's not a sealed room like you have.
Those 2400s do all right in there, I think. Pair of those 2400.
If anybody else goes to database, are all of the values gone?
I was looking at it the other day and I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know if they'd pulled the information down or if it was.
I'm going to be very sad if everything's gone.
Yeah, I know they're not adding as much content in that.
It does look empty to me too.
No.
Aaron, do you ever use database?
I used to. I haven't looked at it in a while. So I heard though that the site's going to go away.
He's got a Clipple. What does he need to look at database for?
Yeah, that's right. No. Man,
Just asking.
we're talking about Josh, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, his speaker test, man. I used to look at that a lot. I was really impressed by the amount of work that he was putting into his measurements.
Yeah, it's all the values and stuff are gone.
That sucks.
The articles are gone.
Oh wow,
It really sucks.
It looks like it's closing down. There's a forum thread on there. It's end of life. He says it's costing $30 a month, and he's not being active with it.
Dude,
anymore.
I will pay for it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he's asking. Here's the go to the forums. It's the top thread.
Mm.
He's asking if somebody wants to pick it up. It'd be nice if somebody would pick up the data and start adding to the data, right?
Mhm.
Like Audioholics or somebody who does
if
some
he gives
subwoofer
me
reviews.
how he does it, I can I'm actually in a good position that I could do this because I can hook him up to my truck because the Lightning's got a 240 out, so we can drive out to the middle of a field and have it nothing and be able to do it there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So if he's
I love that.
serious, I mean, we can
Reach out
maybe make
to
that
him, man.
happen. Can you link me?
Yeah,
Jonathan?
sure. I'll put it in private chat.
And put it in private chat. Cool, man. Yeah, and I'm like you, man. And Jonathan, you were showing us probably a couple podcasts ago how on the website they had the ability to kind of literally put two subwoofers side by side and compare the data that he has pulled, which is super handy when
Sure.
you're looking at two different subwoofers and which one should I go with my setup. So
Yeah, it
so
was a great
JD
site.
the expert, the new guy over on the left. Oh, it just changed. Where did it go? Daggum it. So the new guy on the left, that is Erin from Erin's Audio Corner. Good friend of mine. He and I are on the Daily Hi-Fi podcast on Monday nights. And so he had been in contact with Ryan, and Ryan's like, hey, why don't you come on hang out with us one night? And invited him, I think 2 weeks ago, but then he had a schedule conflict last week. So we said, come on, brother.
Yeah.
So glad to have you here, man.
I'm excited. Y'all talk about home theater stuff. I'm just going to sit here and listen.
No, man, you got to give us some input, man. Erin has finally upgraded from Dolby Pro Logic. So we're excited about that.
Well, I'm not running it yet. Actually, technically, I'm still running a soundbar. So, but what's funny is the soundbar has more channels than my old home theater did. So there's that. Yeah, man, it's a soundbar. It sounds incredible. Let me tell you how good that soundbar is.
I had to get rid of him.
Nah.
I'll tell you some other day.
That's messed up, dude. Aaron, this is a great comment here, man. It says Aaron looks rested.
I am.
That's a good comment. Aaron's had a rough year, and but he's doing well, man. We're happy for you.
Thank you.
Cool deal.
I appreciate that. I need some more rest.
Alex the Great, appreciate the $10 super chat. Love the content, fellows. Speaking of budget, want your input on sound cue experience. So, all right, let me just keep reading. Sound cue experience with the definitive technology demand line or demand series. Considering buying the D17s now, Youthman deal from Adorama, coming from the cheap R28F speakers from Klipsch. So super cool. So I'm not familiar with the D. Let me look here. So he's looking at D17s. So let me look those up. D17 definitive technology.
This is their, I think that's their new big one.
So I have, okay, so these are probably the series above what I've got. I've got a pair that are in for review, but I don't have the D17. So let me pull these up. So I have the DM70 in for review. All right, so let's pull these up here. Share the screen. Man, I got way too many tabs. Sorry about that.
Or is this their previous generation?
That I'm not as familiar with their line. This is the first time I've heard definitive technology in a long time. So D17 is what he's looking at. So it's interesting. They say it's their flagship tower.
I think that's their previous one.
Yeah, I was
Scroll
about
down
to say because they have another series
Scroll
that's
down.
twice as much as this.
Scroll down.
I'm getting there, Hoss.
It says out of stock. I think that's their old one.
Okay. And that's might be why he's got a great deal on a Youthman deal on Adorama. Okay, so he's looking at these speakers. And so the question is, considering, okay, so would that be a good upgrade over the R28F? So definitely going to have a totally different sound. So Definitive Technology, if these are similar, they're going to have a bipolar design. So I'm looking here to see if that is correct.
I think
'Cause I don't
all
know
of
if-
them do.
No, well, it doesn't look like it. So these are just front firing. So the ones that I have mid-range and tweeters on the back side. But as you
Does
can
that
see,
have
in
a
this,
top driver? What is that thing on the top? That silver thing.
it's hard to tell. I see what you're saying. It's right underneath the lid on the top. Let me scroll down. So it doesn't look like this is their typical bipolar design that they have in some of those. Looking here. So one thing I did find is that they're definitely not that sensitive. So see this number right here, sensitivity 1 watt, 1 meter. So when they fed the speaker 1 watt, put a microphone 1 meter, it was 87 dB. So that's pretty inefficient. And all that means is you're just going to have to feed it some pretty good power to get it, especially if you're listening like to reference level. They don't dig down super deep, which is what I found with the series that I'm reviewing currently. So these go down to 38 hertz. But if you're
38 hertz for a tower speaker is pretty good if
know,
it
but
actually
it's
does
just
that.
not, yeah, but it's just not super low
Right.
by any means. Look here, what else? I mean, the biggest thing, they're going to have a totally different sound than Klipsch will. Now the let me see what number you said. The R28F. I don't think that's just their reference series. And I hated when Klipsch did that. They added the term reference to their entry level speakers, which kind of didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's
In the
weird.
past, reference has always been their flagship in that series. And then they came out with the reference Premier, which almost makes you think, oh, this is above the reference, but it's actually below the reference. And then they came out with the reference, which is not near the same level as the RF, which is reference, or RP, reference Premier, and it's definitely not the level of the actual reference. So it's real confusing. So if you're running the reference, which is the R28F, let me see. I just want to make sure it's the ones I'm thinking of. Yeah. So those are basically all right. I may get in trouble for this, but I don't care. This is kind of my thought, my own opinion. I know everybody isn't going to agree with me, and that's okay. But to me, this right here, let me pull it up. The R280F is almost identical to their old Synergy series. So the Synergy series were the ones that had the silver silver.
Is that a
woofers.
front port?
It is front ported, but these, I mean, even the port looks almost identical to the Synergy. So to me, the reference was just a rebranded. Really? No thanks. This is really just a rebranded Synergy series to make it look cooler. I have heard that series and I wasn't a real big fan. So honestly, I think there's a lot of speakers that would be a lot better than the R28F. So if you can get a great deal on these here, oh, you're still seeing that. Anyway, it's not showing my tab, but if you're looking at the Definitive Technology, these look like just regular front firing speakers. They're not the bipolar design, which that in itself just has a different sound. It's definitely not going to be for everyone, which, like I said, I'll mention in my review.
I think what I'm most curious about is, have you bought these speakers yet?
I think he's just looking on Adorama.
If you haven't, can you share the price point? Because we may be able to give you what we may recommend for a speaker. I've never been a proponent of Def Tech in my speaker recommendation repertoire.
You don't hear a lot of guys, that have them. And so I was curious definitely to get a pair in, and I liked them. I don't think they're amazing, but I like them. But like I said, they're definitely a different sounding speaker. And I'll share that information in my review. So hang tight on that one. Have you guys heard any Def Tech?
They were at Expona. That's all I'm going to say.
What a big fan of. Okay.
I don't think I've ever heard them.
You've never heard DefTechs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They,
I mean,
here's
other
what
than a store.
Yeah.
So he says $1,250 for a pair.
$1,250. Okay.
So Alex, do you have any dedicated subs? Like, what does the rest of your system consist of? I think is also an important factor to note.
Hmm. Yeah, a couple other guys. Like, if you like the sound of clips, you would by far be better off if you can find a good deal on like the Reference Premier series, the 280Fs. He's talking here, the RP 280 series. So any of those, even the older clips reference, like the actual reference from, probably 5, even 10 years ago, would spank, the series that you've got now. If you like that sound, if you're looking for a different sound, then by all means, head a different direction. So yeah, I do notice that on a lot of DefTech speakers, they have the bass radiators on them.
But they do have also active low end on a lot of their speakers too. Yeah,
right. Like with an amplifier.
Mm-hmm.
They don't dig super deep though.
No, it's just something different that they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
so
I said, I think there's definitely an application for them.
He says he's got 2 PB1000s and SBS Prime elevation heights.
He doesn't have a crazy budget, and that's totally cool. Absolutely. Totally get that, man.
My recommendation in that would be to check out your used market in that price range. I think you're just going to get a lot better value at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like DefTech, I think they can be good. I've never heard that particular speaker, but I've never been blown away by them in general.
Yeah. And like I always refer, or recommend to everybody, Alex, if at all possible, try to find a place that you can actually hear those speakers, because just because it's a good price doesn't mean it's going to sound good. It'd be even better if Aaron put those things on the clipple and he could tell you how they're going to sound in your room.
Yeah.
Then that could save you some money, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Best Buy carries, even if they're not a Magnolia, most of them carry DefTech.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a Best Buy in your area and you're in the United States or Canada, that may be a good place for you to be able to go listen. It may not be the current generation, but it can give you an idea of the DefTech sound.
Sure.
I think that's really, really important for you to be able to listen and do, because DefTech does some things that are different than a lot of other companies. And if you like it, fantastic. If you don't, it's good to find that out before you buy it.
Yeah. So Mikey says, deals will come and go on all sorts of stuff. And then Ryan says they have a cooked, I don't know what a cooked low mid bass sound to them is, but the low mid bass is cooked.
Ryan, that is audiophile.
I don't know what that means. It sounded good.
It is cooked.
It's
cooked. Says the guy who made up the term wet. Look at you.
So Ryan mentioned a couple, probably about a month or two ago.
It was over a month ago. People are using it now.
He just started describing this stuff as wet bass. What the heck is a wet bass?
Wet and dry bass, baby.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I want that in my life right now.
Wet bass.
I'm not sure, man.
Make sure you take an insurance policy out before you be adding that wet bass into your basement.
Bass.
That's too funny, man. All right. I'm trying to find a question for, hey, if you got a question for Aaron, put in the comments, because I want to engage him some
in
too.
capital letters.
Do not put them in the comments.
Put like 3 question marks, and that way we'll know it's for Aaron.
Aaron does not want to be engaged, so please do it.
You know,
do not engage. D&E.
I'm gonna put you over here because you're looking
Hold fire.
that
you
way.
need to be over here. Why am I at the top?
It doesn't matter which way.
Yeah, but it makes me feel awkward because you're always.
I'm looking at a separate screen.
All right, there we go. Now
there we go.
And we can play like,
let's
just have some fun with this, and just kidding.
Here's the story of lovely lady.
Oh my goodness. Steve Kogel. Sorry to pronounce your last name wrong. There it is. It just popped up. Appreciate the $10 super chat. Just got 4 GSG 18-inch Marty Cube drivers. He's got 2 UM18s and 2 Lavoche. Holy cow, what a system, dude. 18.
Whoa.
What's
Is
that?
Lavoche or Lavoche?
I say, I say
Another one.
Lavoche.
I have a friend who works for them actually, so I can ask him and find out.
Call
Oh,
him
so
now.
you don't know?
No, I've heard it. Same thing. Jamo. I freaking quit. I quit.
I love it, dude. Holy cow, man. That's a lot of 18. So need
No,
more
those
amps.
are the two. Those are the 4 drivers for those 4 boxes.
Right. Marticube boxes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm thinking he's had 8. I'm like, holy cow.
UM18s
Okay.
are Dayton's, and then Lavoche
Oh,
are
okay,
the
okay,
other
okay.
one. So he's
I
4
got you now.
drivers, 4 boxes.
So he's got 4 boxes and he's got 2 drivers and 2 drivers. All right, perfect. Appreciate that. So he's got the Crown XLS 1502 now, but he needs more amplifiers. So he's considering maybe Behringer or speaker power, and he has a mini DSP. Any recommendations there? So I know you guys have used Pro Audio amps in your setup. Erin, I don't know if you've used Pro Audio in your setup.
Yeah. I use the Crowns XLR, the second, well, not the XLR, the XLS, the original drive cores, and then the second generation drive cores. I love them, man. For
Crown's
subwoofers and stuff
awesome.
like that. I mean, now like for high sensitivity mains, the noise floor on them is
Sure.
so annoying.
We're just
But
talking
otherwise-
just for passive subwoofer, or not passive, but like subwoofers that need
Yeah.
external amplification.
Yeah, man, I go with them
18-inch, lots of power.
and they're not loud. Like, you know, some of the other pro amps that have fans on them, they'll kick on, and they like QSC amps. Every QSC amp I've ever owned, as soon as you turn it on, dude, it's like
yeah,
it
but the
suck you right through
QSCs, a lot of them are built like tanks. I mean, you could
They are
literally
They're
drive over them. and
40
they would be
pounds.
fine.
You
Yeah.
literally can.
But
yes.
they do need the fans because a lot of them are Class H. And they have
Right.
to have the fans. But
So,
Jonathan, I was pointing at you because you've been down this pathway.
Yeah, I was considering some speaker power amps myself, but the price kind of scared me away, to be honest. The UM18 certainly is matched really well to a Behringer NX 6000. Those amplifiers put out 16 or 1700 watts per channel reliably, and that's about all that UM1822 is worth. I don't know that SAF 8184 off the top of my head. We'd have to look up specs on that, and I can do that real quick. But speaker power is going to cost you thousands of dollars, and Behringer is going to cost you like $700. So
Fraction,
yeah,
Now,
and
maybe-
I've had my Behringers. One more thing, I bought my Behringers in 2014. I've had one failure in that time, and a guy on eBay fixed it. Like, he just said, hey, I fix Inuke amps. I tried them out. It was like $175, and it's good as new. So I'm
Right.
back in business. Like,
nice.
the cost savings is really good for
Pay-
subwoofer use with those Behringers.
Pay attention to what Jonathan said, though, that they do not produce 6,000 watts.
No, they do not.
Behringer is notorious for overstating their power
Correct.
capabilities of their
Are they the
amplifiers.
boss of Pro Amp?
no, I got you one, Michael. They're the clips of amplifiers.
Sensitivity.
All right,
Like,
all
just
right, fair
add
enough.
60B to whatever they say.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough.
All right.
Shots fired.
That's the only thing I'm gonna say.
Can we have Erin on here more?
Is that all
love
I
it,
gotta
man.
say? Is just that the clips of.
No,
Yeah.
just the wittier remarks. We gotta work angled. We
Yeah,
gotta
that's right.
angle these guys. These guys can be the voices of reasons, and we can
Yeah,
hammer
We
them
will-
with sarcastic
we will
remarks.
not do that.
Yeah.
I'm
love
curious
it,
why he doesn't just go with another XLS 1502 or stay in the XLS lineup. Why is he looking to go outside of that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would
I'd
just
stay in the
for
XLS.
sure.
Cost savings,
Yeah.
maybe.
What does a 1502 cost right now on eBay?
Probably like 350 or something like that. New.
I'll,
is what
I'll
I'm
tell
getting.
you, the XLS 1502 isn't as capable as the NX 6000 as far as
No.
power, because I've looked that up
Okay.
in the past.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
No,
But
not even
reliability-wise-
close. 525 watts, so you're probably looking at double that bridged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'd still
so
go
you're-
with Crown. And if you don't like it, you can sell it. That's the good thing about those Crowns is people will buy those up, man. I had no issues unloading. Like, I had 5 and they sold in 2 days.
Or QSC.
Or QSC. Yeah.
I mean, they've gotten more expensive since, but I got my CX 1102s, which are 1,700 watts a channel for like $400 a piece,
Yeah.
and they're 2-channel amps.
Hey, that's an idea too. So I live, for those who don't know, and I'm sure that's everybody, I live in North Alabama. In Birmingham, Alabama, there is a used pro audio guy who, like, for people who set up concerts and things like that, that's what he deals in, is all used stuff.
Okay.
And I bought QSC for $400. I bought, it's like 3602, and it's like 3,600 watts at 4 ohm
Wow.
or something, just ridiculous for $400. So I'm saying that to Steve, if he's got anything like that in his area, like pro audio, resellers and things like that, he should look into that. He may be surprised.
$400 right now on eBay, $350 plus $50 in shipping. CX 1102s, which I have 2 of them, and they were built like tanks. 1,700 watts at 2 ohms per channel. I mean, they're stupid power, but they have fans. So if you can't deal with the fans,
yeah, if you could put them in a closet or something, then that's all right.
Yeah,
but
they're phenomenal amps, and
they absolutely are. Yeah, I use them for subwoofer testing for Clipple stuff.
Yep, they're great.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, we got some questions for you.
Uh-oh.
Did we answer that one okay? On your
think
recommendations for the... Yeah. So possibly look at another crown, maybe with more power.
Yeah, you
Behringers
can-
they kind of stretch the numbers.
I don't agree, but we can move on. I feel like for the money, crown's awesome. I have crowns for my mains. I have the X 8300 for my mains, and I have crown amps for my tactile transducers. And I'm a crown fan. I like them. But for the power for the subwoofer side, I've talked to the GSG Audio guys, which is where he's working with. Jason from GSG Audio told me they have a lower failure rate on the Behringer iNukes than any of the other amps they sell.
Oh, okay.
Which kind of is surprising, right? Because you wouldn't expect that.
Sure.
And I'm not at liberty to discuss numbers, but he gave me numbers. And this, I'll just shut up right there because I don't want to disparage
so
the
it's
companies.
a good value, and it could be a good
excellent
option.
value.
Okay, cool.
Excellent value, right? Because proven on the meters, not NYT and some of those other guys, 1700 watts per channel at 4 ohms.
Okay.
How do you get that power out of, unless you go use crown? You can definitely do it. Some of the big old like XLS 5000s. You can do it with the X4, the CE 4000. Like there's ways to get there with crown, but it's not the 1502. The 1502 is only putting out, you saw it too, Ryan, 525 per channel. So you're losing 3 times the power.
I don't think I would go crown.
And crown for, and one more thing, crown for sealed sometimes has a roll off. Not all of them. You have to be careful, but they have a roll off for sealed subs that's sometimes pretty strong below 20 hertz. Like it's built into the amp. It's non-defeatable. And the Behringer iNukes play solid down to 7 to 10 hertz on all the charts. So like they're kind of an anomaly, and they've realized they're an anomaly. Those iNukes used to be like $300 or $400 for 6,000, and now they're $700 or $800. They changed the packaging. It's now instead of an iNuke DSP, it's now a Behringer NX series. But the guts are the same. The power rating is the same. They just realized they had a little bit of a treat that they could get a little more money for. But they've been the do-it-yourself community on AVS forums. Tons of people run them. Behringer doesn't have a great name, not as good as Crown, but that product is really good in their line for subwoofer use specifically.
So definitely something to consider for sure, man. Appreciate the question, Steve.
That's a really good point too about the frequency response. I forgot all about that, but I've seen proof of that. So that's a very good point on the low end.
Yeah.
So we got a couple questions here for you. Mid-bass Maestro says, for Aaron, rear fill application, I'm car frequency bandpass crossover points?
Probably in a car. 300 hertz to 3 to 5 kilohertz, just wherever you want to play with it. Make sure you set the time delay really far away, because the point is to make it sound like you're having some kind of rear reflection off the front stage. So the sound that you're watching from the stage is going past you, and then it's coming back at you, and it's supposed to be delayed a lot. Depends on how much ambiance you want, will drive how much delay you have, but also try to make sure to match the delay with the level. So if let's say if there's like a millisecond of delay and the speaker is twice as far as other speakers are away from you, then you want it to be about 6 dB down in level. So that kind of rule of thumb, just make sure that you're following that, and that'll give you the whole ambiance effect. But really and truly, rear fill, also make sure you're doing differential if you're not, the left minus right and the right minus left, because if you don't, it's just going to sound stupid. But play around with it, man. There's really no exact right level or delay. It really is going to be dependent upon what you want, the effect that you're trying to create, because again, it's an effect. It's not anything that's actually in the recording. You're basically just pulling sounds out, making them out of phase, and doing some weird fun stuff. Keep that in mind. It's fun. It's up to you what you want to do with it.
Super cool. Well, speaking of fun, he loves up mixing your videos.
Oh snap! I don't even know how to even do that, man.
Yeah. We're gonna get you there. You got a nice
You listen
receiver
to
now.
them in all channel
do.
stereo.
Yeah, he does. He up mixes it and down mixes it back to mono.
Oh, funny. Let's look here. All right, Aaron, here's another question for you. Devon says, Aaron, you can only choose one style of speaker for a custom room of your design and cost no option. Would it be in-wall, on-wall, or the normal speaker box?
All right. I actually thought about this a couple days ago, and I'm cheating on this answer. If cost were no object, I would have a house that had like 5 or 6 different rooms, and every single one of them would be different.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
But if you could only have one room,
I couldn't do it, man. It would change like every year. I would just pull them out and put something else. I saw a friend of mine has the JBL 4367s. It's one of my favorite speakers that I've heard. There's the Kef Blade Meta 2s,
okay,
which couldn't be any more different, but they both sound fantastic.
Sure.
And then, in-wall speakers, I like the simplicity. The look, right? Like when you walk into a room, it's really cool to not see speakers sitting out. That's why a lot of people will go with the hidden or the perforated screen, to have the speakers behind their home theater screen set up. That's just something about that, right? So yeah, man, if cost for no object, I'd have a huge house with multiple rooms and I'd be switching stuff out.
It's something for everything.
Yeah, I really would, man.
All right, that's fair.
That's a crap answer, but
nah, it's all good. I think there was one more I saw in here. Here we go. So you mentioned Kef. So JSI L36 says, looking at upgrading from Kef Q900Cs to either Kef R2Cs non-meta or Kef R6 meta to match my Kef R7. So a lot of different models of Kef. And so I'm not super familiar with those.
I mean, I would say that if you're simply between the R2C and the R6, I'd go the R6 meta any day of the week just because it's larger drivers and it's a newer design. And I wouldn't so much worry about it matching or not matching to your R7s. Like the R6 meta, will it match to your R7? I wouldn't worry about that, man. I think by the time it's all said and done, you're going to do enough EQ and they have enough control directivity where it's not going to really matter. So I would say R6 meta, and I wouldn't even think twice about it.
I like it, man.
I like Kef stuff, man. A lot of people, well, not a lot. Some people don't, but I really think they got some great engineering inside of their products. Not all the speakers sound great to me, but I'm really amazed at the level of engineering that they put out, and they publish white papers on all this stuff. I think that's wicked.
Yeah. And that's good that they're willing to just throw it out there and say, hey, look, here's what we're about.
Yeah. And it's not all marketing fluff. I mean, certainly there's a degree of marketing to it, right? Because otherwise their company probably wouldn't let them just throw everything out there. But I think it's really cool that they do that.
Grave Danger says, are we going to see many changes in theater audio and video with laser projectors and spatial audio? So lasers are definitely, becoming a kind of the new thing right now in projectors. Whether, it kind of started off with the ultra short throw laser projectors. And now we've got some of the higher end projectors from JVC, Sony, Epson now has a laser projector. Are we going to see many changes in that? I think we're always going to see changes in technology. That's just the nature of the beast. It's going to continue to evolve. I think all of us would be just merely guessing on where that's going to lead, how far that's going to go, how quickly it's going to happen. And I think the same thing with spatial audio. I think we're at the very beginning stages of this. And I believe as time goes on, it's just going to get better faster, over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Brandon says laser projectors are kind of limited in size they can be. I don't see how they can accommodate higher end user. What does he mean by that? You're not sure how they can accommodate the higher
limited. Have you seen the Christie's? Those things are water cooled and they're half
all
the
of
size
the
of a room.
barcodes. I mean, they're enormous.
The commercial theater ones, they're the size of a room. They're not limited in size.
The barcode Nord is going to be at, I'm pretty sure it's the Nord will be at M-Wave.
One of the Evan was
10,000 lumens.
Yeah.
They might be limited in brightness if you want to consider that, because those companies have to kind of fight with the idea of blinding their customers or their customers' kids or their customers' dogs. I mean, it's a legitimate thing,
they
right?
Really do.
So that's why you see some of those projectors have an auto dim if they recognize a face and stuff like that. There's going to be a cap there. There's going to be a cap.
But as another example, when I install a GTZ 380, I have to fill out a bunch of FAA paperwork because of the class of laser that it is.
Yeah.
In case you signed it in the sky.
Yeah, I'm dead
You're
serious.
Wow.
Because it's a class of laser, because it meets a certain class, and because it's going in a certain environment, you have to fill out a bunch of stuff, and they have to be mounted a certain way. Like when Sony comes out and does their demos and they bring the GTZ 380 and stuff out, they typically have to put it above the normal walking position because they don't want people walking in front of it and then blinding them as they walk by it. So it's absolutely something and real that Jonathan brings up, and things I think people really don't consider it enough. The projectors can do it, just maybe your skin and eyes can't.
Yeah, Brandon said he's talking about ultra short throws or short throws. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some limitations, but again, I think as time progresses, I mean, think back 10 years ago, would you even imagine that we would have some of the technology that we have now? It didn't make sense 10 years ago, but science, advancement has taken place and has taken us to a step that we didn't think was possible. I mean, I still remember, I sound old, but I was probably the last person to ever get a cell phone that was a smartphone because I thought having email on my phone was absolutely stupid. Like, why would somebody want to send a text message? Just pick up the phone and call them. Well, here we are many, many years later, and that's become part of a staple of who we are and how we communicate. So as technology changes, it's going to advance. So I think even with ultra short throws, I like what ultra short throw brings to certain applications. I think they're a great fit for somebody that has a room kind of like my living room, big triple sliding glass windows. So there's a lot of ambient light. I've got this front door right here has a big glass in it. So that's letting in a lot more light there. So our room is filled with a lot of ambient light. And if I wanted to go bigger than my TV, which is an 85 inch, let's say I wanted to go 100, 120, 150, it's going to be really difficult for me to put a standard projector in that room because I've got 12-foot ceilings. So that's going to be a stupid looking pole coming down from the ceiling. I got a ceiling fan. So then it's like, where do you put the projector in regards to that? That gets in the way. So ultra short throw makes a lot of sense in an application like that. But like you said, there's definitely some limitations. But I think over time, we're going to see that they're going to continue to get better. They're going to continue to innovate that platform. And it definitely may be some, like they're just going to continue to grow. I really, really think that.
Let me show you something here, Michael, where I hope this goes. I'm kind of excited about this.
Yeah, sure.
You guys might have seen it. There are 3D billboards, especially over in like China and Japan and so forth, where they're doing like 3D technology without glasses or anything. And it's just, this is real stuff. It's not fake.
Wow, that looks cool.
Yeah. So this kind of technology could feasibly come to our homes, right? I mean, that's something that's potentially on the horizon. I don't know the cost or, what it is, but this is really cool technology.
Check that out. That dragon was super, super cool.
Yeah. Wow. I got an ad.
Hey, somebody's got to get paid. Come on, man.
Here we go. So, I mean, like, what if your TV at home, like, had 3D without glasses like this? How awesome is that?
Man.
How?
I don't know how. I don't understand it either, man. but it's legit.
It only works if you're standing in one spot.
It probably has to be below. Yep.
You have to stand in one spot, otherwise this falls apart. So it's how the display is showcasing the different parts and
still cool though.
Yeah, it is super cool.
Think 20 years ago, would you ever dream that you could see something like that? No, so technology, I mean, it's not slowing down. If anything, is getting faster. And then of course now with like Chat GPT and stuff like that, man, it's interested.
Well, and Ryan, to your point about needing specific placement, that's pretty much what home theater is, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're in a chair, so it could be molded potentially.
I'm simply saying on those billboards and stuff, you have to be in that one spot. So for a home theater application, it could absolutely work. Would it work for off aspect as much? Maybe not, but the technology may change and be able to allow that.
Yeah. So it looks like you get a fan here, Aaron. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. What's up?
He's a fan. Good to see you, Nicholas. All right.
I'll let that go to my head.
Yeah. All right, football friends, do you change crossovers after your calibration? So whether that's Dirac, whether it's YPOW, whether it's Odyssey, I do. Depends. I mean, there have been times where I have had clip speakers. I had clips.
Oh, that explains it.
Well, here's the deal.
I'm just kidding.
I had clips of Scalas, and Odyssey would set the crossover at 40 hertz. These things are effective down to maybe 70 hertz, at least documented by PKW himself. PWK. No, PKW. Yeah, I said it right. They're not meant to play that low. So absolutely, I change them sometimes. Most of them I don't. But there are times like my fronts, I think regardless of what Odyssey says, I talk to the owner. And I'm like, okay, what do you recommend as a good setting for me? And he said 60 hertz in your room. So that's where I've got mine set. So I don't mind changing those. So do you guys change yours after you run room correction? You set your own? How do you figure out what crossover you want to use in your room?
I found out the auto EQ just doesn't do right most of the time with the crossover points. When I've gone back and checked it with my Omni mic afterwards, it might set it to X, and then if I just switch it to Y, I go up 20 hertz or down 10 hertz or just kind of play around, I'll get a better integration from my main listening position. That's primarily with Odyssey I'm talking about, because that's one I have the most experience with.
Sure.
The question is valid because with room gain and proximity placements and corner loading and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't set, and we've talked about this before on your channel, it doesn't set, even though I have 13 identical speakers in here, it doesn't set the crossover points identical, because the room, as you know, was alluded to earlier, the room plays havoc on things below the modal region or the Schroeder EQ frequency. So effectively, I go back and I don't use EQ, so it doesn't matter at the end anyway. But after Odyssey does its distances calculation, I turn it off. I set all my crossover points to be the same. There are potentially, if you go back and modify things for something that's real fancy, like your Dirac and stuff, it can make phase issues. And I think Ryan or Aaron can speak to that. I don't know how big of an issue that is for like something that's more a simpler heritage, but maybe Aaron might have a more technical answer.
I don't know if it's a more technical. So I think maybe that question should be caveated with, does the calibration drive the crossover, right? Like, then maybe you want to. I think Michael has a good point there about it doesn't really, like, it just doesn't make sense. It's doing what it's doing, right? So that's kind of weird. So like when I see the question, I'm thinking of Dirac, and the way that Dirac works, I would personally not go and mess with the crossovers after that. If that's probably a longer conversation about how do you set everything up, right? Like one way is to sit down and measure every individual speaker with nothing else playing and see what it's doing. And then measure the speakers, like start introducing more speakers to see the interaction and play around with crossover slopes and crossover points and all that stuff, right? And then run Dirac to let it do the equalization, right? To tame the modal issues and stuff like that. That's what I would probably do. So in that case, I would not touch anything after I let Dirac run. But if you're doing something like what Michael said, where it just doesn't make sense, it's setting a crossover way too low for a speaker, then yeah, I definitely adjust it. It's just that the way that at least Dirac works is it does a really good job with the phase alignment between the sub to mains. And when you start going, as soon as you change the crossover, even if you move it a few hertz, right? Like if you just pull up the menu and go from 70 hertz to 75 hertz, you can change a lot.
Sure.
And And the way that you can tell is just by listening to test tones. If you go get your phone and go to the App Store and download Signal Gen, it's like just one word, Signal Gen. You can actually play back test tones through your system, and you can work to find a better spot where it makes sense to put a crossover at. But man, this is such a long-winded.
Sure.
I mean, really, I mean, we talking about going down the rabbit hole on how to set up properly. So that's just my 2 cents, at least.
For sure. Great question, man. I wish we could dive into it even deeper. So Nicholas has a question for you, Aaron. Appreciate the super chat. Can we elaborate on wide versus narrow dispersion speakers? Pro and cons, please. Also include the room's influence on both reflections and so forth. Aaron, you're cool.
Oh, thank you.
That's a good way to get you to answer a question, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
You're
just
cool.
butter me up and then stick me in the oven.
What are your thoughts there? Wide versus narrow dispersion. Let's just take it a bit at a time.
Right. Speaking in pure generalities here, a wide speaker is, let's start off with definitions first, right? So a very, very narrow speaker is a speaker that's firing just a straight beam. That would be like a 0-degree coverage angle. There's nothing except for a solid beam, right? And then the complete opposite is
going to suck.
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, let's just say it's a laser beam of sound, right? Like we're talking extremes.
Sure.
That would be that's one extreme, right? And then the other extreme of that is omnidirectional sound, where it's 360 degrees. Most standard speakers are, in my experience, between about 40 degrees to about 90 degrees in a is that a hemisphere, I guess? So if you're talking actual coverage angle, it would be like 80 degrees, like V to 180 degrees.
So 40 degrees one way, 40 degrees the other way.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. So I would classify narrow as anything below about 50 degrees and wide anything above 50 degrees. Just, one little wedge. So that's kind of what I mean when I say that. Wider sounding speakers tend to have more envelopment. They have more room interaction. They have more soundstage width. They might have more depth. A lot of that depends on how close the speaker is to the wall behind you, things like that. Narrow speakers have less room interaction. If you have a very reflective room, you like say a glass room, or you have like windows right next to something, you might want a speaker that is more narrow in radiation, maybe just so
it's not hitting those.
Yeah, you don't illuminate that wall. Now, the opposite argument for that is, well, if it's a good speaker and it's designed really well and its off-axis dispersion is pretty, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for here? On par with the on-axis sound. So as you go to the side of the speaker, you don't really like lose the tonality so much, you just drop in high frequency. That argument then is, if you have a speaker that's like that, then the sound that's reflected off the walls isn't so different, and it may actually be more pleasing. So really and truly, this is a preference thing. In my years of doing this, what I found is I generally prefer a speaker that's about plus or minus 60 degrees to 70 degrees in coverage angle from like one triangle, I guess.
Okay.
So that would be plus or minus 120 degrees to 140 degrees on the hemisphere. That's my personal experience. Anything wider than that, what I tend to find is that I lose focus of the images in the soundstage. Anything more narrow than that, there's just not enough envelopment. There's not enough room interaction. Now, that's all caveated by the fact that if you have a really crappy speaker,
right,
and it has wide dispersion, it's going to sound like garbage, because everything that's hitting the side walls and coming right back to you is not going to sound anything like the sound that's coming directly at you, and it's just not going to have a uniform sound to it. So that's probably like the first portion of that answer. Let's see here. The room's influence.
That's one thing that's one thing that you talk a lot about on your channel is you measure off-axis response. So typically, honestly, when I'm listening to a speaker and I'm listening to or doing a review, I'm mostly doing just on-axis listening. I'm not moving. I'm not moving over 30 degrees and kind of seeing, okay, how does it change from there? But you actually take measurements of speakers that you review to show, okay, how does the speaker measure off axis? And so the further off axis you get, typically the worse sound a speaker has.
Yeah, I mean, the high frequency will naturally roll off because it's becoming a little bit more narrow in the higher frequency area. And that's a thing. I mean, then you're talking about speaker types. Dome tweeters will narrow up about like 8 kilohertz. But if you have a constant directivity horn type driver or a waveguide type speaker, then it may start to narrow up at 2 kilohertz. You know, and then the size of the individual drivers comes into play. The baffle width comes into play. These are all things that you really have to kind of, you either need to do this long enough to understand it, or you just need to have the data to understand exactly what the speaker is going to do. And the thing about being off axis versus on axis is when you're listening in your room, if you have the speaker towed directly at you, you're hearing the on axis sound, but you're still hearing the stuff that's sent out to the side. It's a little bit lowered in amplitude because it's hitting a wall and then it's reflected back to you. But that's why that stuff still matters, is because you really want the same tonal characteristic that's radiated directly in front of the speaker and hits you. You also want that to be radiated out into the room, so you have a similar sound that's reflected back toward you.
Yeah, and Jonathan, like, I mean, I'm going to blow Jonathan up here for a second. So Jonathan has very wide dispersion speakers. He's got the JBL speakers. Jonathan, are they 140 degree?
I think they're a little higher than that even. They're put me on the spot with that. I think they're 150 or 100. I mean, they might even be wider than that. JBL 70J1. Let's look it up and figure it out.
So they have a huge dispersion. So when you think about 180 degrees would be a flat line. So all the way to the left, all the way to the right.
Right.
His are kind of like, well, if I could do it, kind of like that.
A V.
You know?
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of dispersion. But as you can see behind him, he's got acoustic treatments right directly behind his head, in between those two speakers. You've got some diffusion over to the right of that with the with his media on the wall, and it's an open floor plan. So there's not a lot of interaction on, I guess, the wall where he's sitting now, if that kind of makes sense, because there's not a wall there. That's open to an area.
So 150 degrees is what JBL quotes.
Yeah.
On the horizontal dispersion.
And Aaron, you said you tend to like, what'd you say?
60 to 70 is usually, so 120 to 140 is kind of, I probably would err more to like the 140, 150 would probably be reasonable as well.
A wide dispersion speaker.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a hard line, but that's just kind of like after listening to a bunch of speakers and then going back and looking at the data after the fact, it's like, okay, I think I have a better understanding of why or what I'm starting to like.
I think it's really funny that Michael, because I don't know what particularly that you like, that Aaron, Jonathan, myself are all in different likes as far as the dispersion level. I'm extremely narrow, Jonathan's extremely wide, and Aaron's in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know what I am. I mean, I'm just...
Michael doesn't even know himself.
What speakers you're running JTR, right?
Me?
They're narrow.
Michael.
I don't know what their dispersion pattern is. Yeah.
If I had to guess, I'd say they're probably like 100 to 120. If I had to guess.
Okay. So not super wide.
Not super wide. No. Yeah. But then you also brought up the point too about, the sidewall treatment. I mean, some speakers don't benefit from sidewall treatment. When I reviewed the KEF R3s a couple years back, what I found was really interesting when I listened to them in my home theater room, which has a lot of sidewall treatment, and then when I listened to them in my living room, which has nothing. I mean, it's not an ideal place, right, by home theater standards. I much more preferred them in my living room. And what I realized was there's some trial and error. When I took the absorption panels off the walls in my home theater room, I liked the KEFs up there, but when I put them back up, I didn't like them anymore. So the KEFs are a little, generally speaking, they're a little bit more on that narrow to, I'd say they're about plus or minus 100 on average.
Okay.
So that's the one thing that I'm not a fan of about KEF's designs. If they were wider, if they were like 120, I would like them even more. If they were 140, I would probably really, really like them. Right. And that's just preference. If I put them into a different room, things change. And I saw that firsthand. So stuff like that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah. And that's, again, guys, the best thing that you can do for your ears is to hear as many speaker configurations and rooms and environments as possible to know what sounds best to you, and I'm all for measurements, but I also know that we all have preferences too. I mean, here we got 3 different guys apart from me, and they all prefer kind of, 3 different things.
Yeah.
Obviously everybody else is wrong.
Exactly. What you don't realize is all three of you are wrong and I'm right. And that's why I don't say anything.
That's exactly right. I changed my mind then. Whatever
Nicholas
Michael likes is what I like.
He has a follow-up question. Appreciate the super chat. Aaron, so if off-axis is important, and it is, as on-axis with wide dispersion speakers, why do some manufacturers design speakers with crappy off-axis response? Yikes.
Well, so first off, I want to address the with wide dispersion speakers. Off-axis is always important, even if it's narrow dispersion speakers. It's always important because you're always hearing the combined effect, right? Yeah. I mean, plus or minus 30 degrees, which is basically 60 degrees out, is really what's going to hit your walls no matter what, right? You're going to hear that from every speaker because pretty much every speaker at least does that. So you're going to hear that. Why do some design speakers with crappy off-axis response? I mean, I don't know. My personal feeling on that is there's two answers in my opinion. Or maybe three. Like just one would be incompetent designers. Okay. Which kind of is like a 1A, 1B kind of thing where maybe they just don't know the importance, right? Like we all start off as DIY. I built a lot of speakers myself, and if I listen to them or I measure them, I'd probably pick, oh my God, these are the worst speakers ever, right? It is what it is. The other thing though is I think we've been conditioned for a long time to only look at on-axis response because, if we got that, it was like, great, cool. So manufacturers will tailor the speaker design to have a good, smooth on-axis response, and then they just don't care about off-axis. And thanks to Floyd Tool's research, we have a better understanding of how important off-axis sound is. But I think a lot of people are still kind of stuck in that, oh, well, the on-axis. I see this one come up a lot where people will compare the response of different speakers that Stereophile has measured. And Stereophile does they're like a waving mic thing where it's maybe within like a plus or minus 30 degree window up and down, left and right. And some people will take those measurements and they'll compare two different speakers and they'll say, well, the response is pretty much the same. Well, number one, plus or minus a couple dB at 2 to 4 kilohertz is going to sound a lot different. That's a side thing. But the other thing is that if you're not measuring the entire speaker's performance, then you're really not getting the full envelope of what's going on. Like that's what he heard, that's what the microphone picked up in that window, but that's not everything that he heard, Yeah. So that's kind of that's my take on it, at least. Otherwise, I really don't know, man. I just don't know.
Yeah.
It's also designed to a price point, right? Because some of your two-ways and so forth are two-ways because it's cheaper to do a two-way crossover and two drivers instead of three-way. You have a fantastic video on why most center channels suck.
Yeah.
And Nicholas would do well to go watch your video on your channel. And that speaks to a lot of these questions, perhaps.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and Ton kind of going along with that, he says, any issue with comb filtering with MTM center channels, which is where you have the mid-range, tweeter, mid-range, either in horizontal or vertical configuration. And like he suggested, you do have a great video on why most center channels suck. And you kind of talk about the different styles of center channels,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Some do a lot better than other ones. And most of them are in this configuration, the mid-range, tweeter, mid-range, in a horizontal. And so why is that a bad thing in a lot of times?
Yeah, so the further apart, right? So if you start with like one speaker right here, and then you add another speaker right on top of it, you're just going to double the output. As soon as you start separating those speakers, depending on how far apart they are and the frequency that they're playing, those sounds that are coming out, they will either overlap and reinforce, or they'll overlap and they'll just start canceling each other out and creating peaks and dips. And that canceling each other out and peaks and dips, that's comb filtering. That's exactly what that is. Yeah. And if you're curious, it's constructive interference or destructive interference, if you want to look up a little bit more about that. So the problem with MTMs is that those two mid basses are separated by a pretty decent distance. Usually that corresponds with it's about maybe 500 to 1 kilohertz in frequency, that distance is. And that means that between that band, they're going to start canceling out, and that sound is going to start tightening up, and you're going to get a very big discrepancy in the radiation of that speaker from the 500 hertz to 1 to 2 kilohertz area. where then the tweeter takes over, and the tweeter is omnidirectional because it's doing its own thing. So at lower frequencies on the smaller diameter, that tweeter is going to be playing wider, and then as it gets in higher frequencies, it's going to start narrowing up. So you basically got two problems. You've got the two mids fighting each other. They're spread apart. As they begin to narrow up in radiation, they're playing less off to the sides. And then that tweeter's coming in very wide, and it's going, hey, I'm over here at like the 2 kilohertz area. And then by the time it gets to 10 kilohertz, it's a little bit narrow. That's not really the issue. It's really the problem because of the distance between the mids being separated like that. If you could put those mids right on top of each other somehow and then put the tweeter right in the middle, then you'd have a coaxial speaker and it'd be okay. You wouldn't really have those issues, assuming that the crossover design is all right. But yeah, when you start separating point sources, the further apart you get them, the more cone filtering there is, and the more narrow the radiation pattern is, the more unpredictable the off-axis response is. And that's just not an ideal design when you're listening in the horizontal plane. Now, if you take that speaker and you stand it upright, then you're fine horizontally, but up and down, it's a big issue.
Now, I'm correct in saying that some manufacturers correct this by using a 2.5 way design where they'll split the mids, and only one of their drivers in an MTM configuration will play the mid, and then both will play the low, where it's not as much of a problem.
Right. Yeah, that is very true.
And then I've seen like SVS, they'll do mid-range with a tweeter, and I'm sorry, like a woofer, then a mid-range and a tweeter below it. So that's what they're doing to try to fix that and mitigate that.
Right. Yeah. And still, it all comes down to physics. You know, how far apart are the woofers? And then, like, if you have a woofer mid-range tweeter, mid-range woofer, you can still have issues because of those two mid-ranges to the side, depending on how far they are separated based on the tweeter being stuck in the middle. So generally speaking, MTM designs are not good for center channel speakers when they're laid horizontally, like flat on their sides, because as you start moving to the side of the speaker or you sit off one of the side of it, you start to lose some of that vocal region. And it's a real issue. Some people don't really have an issue with it, but once you hear it, you'll start buying other center channels to try to get rid of it.
I think the hardest thing though is that's typically what most people have to have, you know, especially if you like a certain sound, because not every manufacturer is going to make a woofer and then a tweeter mid-range. So they don't have that option, or they don't have a concentric driver where you have, you know, the woofer and then the tweeters dead in the center of it. So they're kind of limited in that respect. And then most people cannot do a vertical, especially in a living room setup.
For sure. So, that's why I say just get a sound bar, man. All right, we'll see y'all later.
Oh gosh, dude, we're gonna boot him.
Ron's gonna kick me off. I saw that face.
Love it, man. I love it.
I already did it once. Don't need to do it again.
A couple other questions here. Bobby Digital, appreciate the $5 super chat. Did you ever have a time to test that Triad Gold?
So I won't say much about that because I need to contact the owner about that. No, I haven't had a chance to test it.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm going to be able to anytime soon, basically. Yeah. And I need to contact the owner because I just keep forgetting about it. It's in my closet. Actually, it's in that closet right over there.
Nicholas has lots of questions. He says, can you fix a speaker on an off-axis response with redesigning the crossover and making it better? So I'm assuming, is he talking about the manufacturer or you yourself? Maybe probably the manufacturer.
Yes. I mean, the answer is yes to either scenario. You can. Do you? Like, I mean, I've without naming names, I've seen a lot of people take designs, a manufacturer's design, and then fix it.
Right.
And they actually make it worse. Yeah. So yeah, you can definitely make something worse.
Yeah, I've seen that over the years.
Yeah. I've done that. I can't tell you the number of times I've screwed stuff up. That's why I like playing with active speakers, man, because I'm not wasting time putting parts together. I can just play with it on the DSP and like, okay, that sounds all right. And I'm going to go measure it, you know?
So Home Theater Gamer, good to see you, Brad. He's got a question. He says, have any of you ever damaged your system due to adding a house curve? I had a recent comment claiming that using any type of curve will cause damage to speakers and subwoofers and will sound like crap. A lot of people I know in the industry use house curves, and the short version of a house curve, my understanding, is instead of just having a total flat frequency response, typically the bottom end, the base area is kind of boosted. So you've got kind of a downwards. I think I'm doing it right in the window here. I'm doing it backwards.
You look like me.
That makes sense.
I know it's hard to do this thing backwards, man. But there's a downward slope. So the base frequencies are higher, and then it kind of slopes down to your higher frequencies. And the biggest reason, is that our ears hear bass frequencies different than higher frequencies and mid-range frequencies. So the question is if you add a house curve, are you running the risk of damaging your speakers and your subwoofers?
What's the capability of your speakers and subwoofers? That's the answer to the question. The premise is wrong. Your commenter is wrong. To say that any type of house curve will damage all speakers and subs that's a crap statement. That's not a real statement. If you have the headroom and the capability on your subs and speakers, you're not going to hurt the speakers or subs. Are you going to damage your house with a house curve? That depends on your SPL rating. We've talked about that in the past. I think it gets up to about, I personally think about 140 dB, and you're doing damage to drywall and to structure, and nails are coming loose and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In my experience, that's about where that starts. 130 over the course of,
I
kind of limit mine to about 130, 135. I have some nails coming loose in my room. I've had to tighten a couple sheets of drywall back there over the course of the 8 years or so that 9 years we've lived here. It's not falling off the walls. You go up to like 140, 145, stuff's actively starting to fall off the walls. 150, you're going to be actively hanging screws while you're listening to it. You know, like it's SPL related.
Can you break things? I think you could if you put the house curve correctly and turned on like live, die, repeats opening intro. You'd probably fry something if your like sub wasn't able to do something. But I think as Jonathan said, if the speaker can handle it and it's got headroom, you're not hurting anything.
Yeah. I mean, I've been running a house curve for years on my setup in my home theater. I know Brad does in his setup. He does his own manual EQ. And
I'm flat. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's just your chest, man.
Better flatten
I'm
than
not
bird
sure
chest.
what that means.
I don't know what that means either.
You got an
You know
iron
what that
board
means?
chest.
I've been hitting the gym for 2 days and I feel crispy. How about that?
I knew that was a gym reference.
I feel, my pecs are a little bit more filled out of 2
They're
days.
sore, aren't they?
That's because you're feeling on them right now, man.
I'll be honest, man. They are sore.
Oh, you're walking around like, what's up?
No.
You want to see the gym? You're carrying all your groceries out with like one arm, like 90 pounds of groceries in one hand. Like, why doesn't the guy use both arms? He's been to the gym today. He's flexing them.
Over there.
Yeah. Show.
Oh goodness, man. Love having fun with you guys. I'm just gonna be up front with you. We've got way too many questions. We will definitely not be able to get to these all tonight. Guys, help me to pick out maybe a couple more. Let's do 3 more, just to make it easy. So take a look at some of the starred comments. Okay, here's kind of going back to dispersion, but tying this into home theater. Bruce says, if you had, let's say, a 9.4.6 system. So we're talking 9 bed layer speakers. So you'd have 3 in the front, maybe 2 front wides, 2 side surrounds, 2 back surrounds. What would the other 2 be? On the bed layer? 3, 4, 5, 6,
got
7.
too long, Michael.
Okay, so I hit it. So basically, it's 3 up front, 2 front wides, 2 side surrounds, 2 rear surrounds, and then you've got 4 subwoofers and then 6 overhead height speakers. So in that type of setup, his premises or his thought is, wouldn't you want everything to be narrow dispersion so you can kind of pinpoint those sounds? Does that change when we move into a home theater environment versus maybe a 2-channel listening setup?
I think this is personal preference.
Okay. I mean, again, I've been to Jonathan's home. Jonathan has how many speakers?
13,
what are you running?
13 of those
So
line
you're-
rays.
So you're running 7 point, like
9.x.4.
Okay. So 4 on the ceiling, overhead, all identical speakers, incredibly wide dispersion speakers, phenomenal sound. I've been to Ryan's house, completely opposite.
That's not in the picture. Don't make me big.
But completely different sound, beautiful home theater. Now the difference is, and Ryan will tell you this, Ryan has a narcissistic home theater.
It is.
It's meant for the primary listening position. It's not
Here's
meant
the
for
trade-off, in my opinion, of what happens here. And this is personal preference. This is, in my opinion, what happens. A narrow dispersion speaker, when you put them in home theater, can give you a phenomenal experience for one seat. When you start moving outside of that one position, like that exact point, things start to fall apart.
Yeah.
Right. So Jonathan's has a fantastic experience over multiple seats. So
his whole freaking room.
Yeah,
dude.
there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
Right. So everything that you do in home theater, in my opinion, is a give and take, depending on what you do. And some things are more give and some things are more take. It's just a different design philosophy. Now, if you do a more narrow dispersion, I'm of the opinion you want more of them because you need to fill in those gaps. If you don't, you're going to have gaps in your layers. Like I have an 11.x.12 in my theater. So
I'm sorry, man. That just sounds hilarious. Yeah, it is definitely narcissistic.
It is.
It's about you, man. You've lost your mind. I can't wait to experience that M-Wave, though, to be honest with you.
We need to redo that video.
Holy
because
crap.
I had somebody over who was looking at
subwoofers.
demoing some stuff, and we were talking about other things, and he was like, "You just seemed angry during that video." And I was still going through some healing processes after my wreck, so it's changed quite a bit. I think we need to redo that.
All right, we can definitely do it.
And I think
Definitely.
maybe so that we don't have the camera in the same position.
Yeah, we don't want to look up your crotch. that was some bad comments, man.
That's all good, but I
And
think
Aaron,
it depends on your
Aaron,
design philosophy.
he's not running 12 8-inch drivers either. He's running 18-inch drivers.
Well, for the subs.
Yeah,
I mean,
what
not,
else
right?
would you run them?
I don't know.
You doing your Atmos 18-inch?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we
I've got
going?
soon to be 4,000 ULF captivators.
Yeah.
So it's
because you're all about that bass.
Yeah.
Treble.
I got to do Jeff solid, man.
Yeah, you're solid. All right. Your intestines aren't solid, but
No,
they're like a mush.
if you keep them under constant pressure from the low frequency, they stay in place.
Hey,
I got you.
there you go.
30. Okay. There's 30 channels, JC, not 38. It's 30.
Yeah, Matt. So kind of to combat that, other end of the spectrum, Matt says, how many cinemas have narrow dispersion electrostatic speakers? None.
But that's for exactly the reason I just said.
But they're trying to provide great sound for 200 people.
It wouldn't work.
Ryan's not doing that in his home theater. He's trying to just make that good for his seat. So that's the difference. And again, I think it goes back to like, what are your goals for your home theater? I mean, the reality is, yes, I have 6 theater seats in my room, but most of the time it's just lonely old Michael. I'm in there playing or demoing or whatever. Or maybe I have a friend or two, but I know when I built my home theater, I basically said, if I can't accommodate my entire family of 6, I don't need to build a home theater, because I want my whole family to be able to be in there at the same time to watch a movie, even though we don't do it very often. But that was one of my goals. But with Ryan, he's not worried about you. If you're over there, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
I'll give you a turn for a while.
I do think it's really important to also point out, as we talked about with different dispersion, as Jonathan, myself, and Erin said that we like different speakers. I really like narrow dispersion speakers. So that's why I built the theater that way. Will everybody like it? No, probably not. But it's what I really like. So I built the theater in that way. It comes down to what you like. Make sure you go out and listen to all of the different types of speakers. I fell in love with electrostatics a long time ago. And frankly, I wanted to be kind of weird because I've never been in another all electrostatic or really any theater like it before. So I decided I wanted to do something a little different.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I still remember going back to when I was younger, everybody in school, everybody had Nikes. And so what did I do? I went out and bought Reebok. Why? Was Reebok better than Nike? No. I just wanted something different. I didn't want to be like everybody else. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You found a speaker that has the performance and has the sound signature that your ears like, and you've made it work in a home theater environment, even though nobody else has really done that. Matt says, I like narrow dispersion. I like those dispersion
Those are cool.
speakers. Those are good. Dispersion speakers also, my front stage is all Martin Logan electrostatic. So super cool. So he's not hating on it. He's just saying it's just a reality, you know. Home theaters, cinemas typically don't use that, but home theaters can. So you're welcome, Brad. All right, let's do maybe one or two more questions and we'll wrap it up right here. I'm gonna let you guys grab one. What do you say? Because like I said, we still got like another 26 and we'll be here all night. So we're gonna wrap it up here.
Somebody threw down the gauntlet.
All right. Ryan couldn't afford the processor for 38. He needs to stop at 30. Holy God.
Challenge accepted.
If Storm made one that large, maybe. But I'm on the biggest one they make.
That's so wild, man. All right. Here's a question about bass. Christian says, is it accurate to say that sealed subs are able to take advantage of room gain more than ported subs, leading to sealed subs being able to dig lower in room than a ported sub could?
I don't think it matters if it's sealed or ported. The room gain's going to help them both.
Okay. So if the room isn't sealed, like we talked about earlier, maybe that's where you have the bigger differences. Then having ported would help out there because you need the additional output because you're not getting the boundary gain.
It's going to be so room dependent and placement dependent and stuff. This is a hard one to answer.
Okay.
I'll give you a sweet and low.
Mm-hmm.
Sheldon and Steven, both in our area, have 8 sealed just like I do. And theirs are corner loaded in the front of the room against concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Steven, in his small room, has to cut at 20 hertz. Like to make a flat response, he has to cut at 20 hertz. Sheldon has a bigger room. He has to kind of do a tiny bit of boost. Mine are at the 1/3 point in my rooms because I have that storage room behind my screen. And then in the back of the room forward, it's about 1/3 and 1/3 for my 2 banks of subs. Mm-hmm. I have to add 9 dB of boost at 20 hertz to be flat at 20 hertz. 9 dB at 20 hertz to be flat. So we all have basically the same sub setup. We all have 8 subs, but placement and room engagements and room size weigh into that so much. It's going to be even more variables when you do ported versus sealed. Maybe one of you guys can talk to where room gain is established or how much it would affect. Like if you had a 10 hertz tune port captivator versus a sealed sub.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know the answer to this. I just know it's going to be very different based on room and placement.
There's so many variables in this question that come into play with the room.
Okay.
I think room gain is, all I can say is that room gain is typically going to help both, but it's probably going to be dependent on the frequencies that are being reinforced depending on the room.
Yeah. Okay. Just, I guess food for thought is you could design 2 different subs, one ported, one sealed, to have the exact same response down to say 20 hertz, right?
Okay.
But then what happens below 20 hertz is dependent upon what the enclosure is. So
yes,
sealed subwoofers roll off. I think it's like 12 dB per octave or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Ported, I can't remember, is it 18 or 24 or something like that? But it's a steeper roll off.
Okay.
But that's assuming that you built the 2 enclosures to be the exact same, right, down to that frequency, right? Like not the same enclosure, but like you've gone through the trouble of modeling them and stuff like that. So your sealed enclosure may be smaller, but it's going to have the same frequency response down to a certain frequency, and then the ported sub is going to roll off more quickly, and the sealed sub is going to roll off a little bit more slowly, right? So the sealed subs, this is maybe where the notion comes in, because the sealed subs will roll off at a lower rate than a ported subwoofer. There's more opportunity for room gain to affect the sealed subwoofer. Does that make sense? So
because there's more frequencies that it's producing.
There's more low frequency below that tuning frequency than the ported will provide. So that is possibly why, but
Okay.
yeah, there's a lot of caveats.
But definitely
and a
not
lot
like
of
absolute
things.
this.
No,
or that.
absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
Sure. So before I address the last question of the night, just another plug for us. Come out, hang out with us July 14th to the 16th. Jonathan's going to be there. Ryan's going to be there. Myself's going to be there. Aaron's going to be there. We've got several other content creators that are going to be there. We've also got some really, really incredible home theaters that you're going to be able to enjoy. Some of them are CDA level. Like these are big rooms with Perlisten, Mad VR, Seymour. We've got Perlisten speakers in that room. So that's going to be incredible. JTR is going to bring a 7.4.6 Dolby Atmos system. SVS is going to do an Atmos system. We've got another brand that just came on board. I'm just waiting on their details so I can share that information with you guys. So we're continuing to build this. It's going to be incredible. We'd love to have you join us in July, and you can find all the details, tickets, and everything at MidwestAVExperience.com. So let's go to the last question. I'm going to throw up one thing real quick. Nicholas, appreciate the $3 super chat. He said, Aaron, you're looking good, man. It's good to see you again.
Thank
And
you.
I love you guys, how you continue to just be incredibly encouraging and super supportive of us as content creators. I know we all have different struggles in our life, and Aaron has shared some of those on his channel. And so go show him some love. Go over there. As you can see, he's a wealth of knowledge. He has an incredible amount of giftedness in the area of measurements. And so if you love that stuff, he's got a great website. But down in the description, I've got a link to his channel as well as his website. And so you can go show him some love after we're finished. Last question of the night has nothing to do with home theater, music, or anything, but I thought this would be just kind of fun if I can find it. Here we go. Blue Bear, appreciate the question. What do y'all do for work? Who wants to start?
Let's make the bottom two start.
All right. So Aaron, what do you do? I mean, do you do this YouTube thing for full time, or do you have like a full real job that pays the bills?
Yeah, I've got a full real job, and I can't say anything more about it. So
what type of work is it? Like just
my degree is aerospace engineering, and I work on missile systems. So
that's cool.
Yeah, that's it.
So no, I mean, it's just nothing major. Just that's super
It'd be
cool.
cool to do this YouTube thing full time, though. I mean, I just don't ever see that happening. But maybe one day,
dude. And I'll be honest with you, it totally can happen one day. It totally. I mean,
cool.
You're completely gifted. You've got a huge group that loves you and appreciates you, and the more people that get to know you, your heart, what you're about, and what you bring to hi-fi, home theater, 2-channel, and that space, man. This is just the beginning, and so that's what's awesome. So
you're gonna make me cry. I appreciate that, man.
No, you are, man, and I love you as a friend, dude.
Thank you.
We've been friends for a couple years now, and you're just super great guy.
And you're taller in person than I thought you would be.
I'm 5'11".
I don't know why. I thought you were going to be
a little short guy.
Not really short. I just thought you'd be like average, like 5'9" or something like that. Like.
So, have you ever seen Ryan or Jonathan in person? Okay, just wait. I'm not going to tell you. Just wait.
Are they all giants? I met Ryan in person.
You'll see. It's quite interesting. So, Jonathan,
quite interesting.
What do you do? And the funny thing is, like, I don't know why, but just about everybody in Kansas City is stinking enormous.
We have to be large in order to keep up with the bass output we have. Otherwise, the small ones have all died off.
That makes sense.
All that grass-fed beef.
Oh goodness, Jonathan, what type?
I work in IT. In application support. I've had various hats in IT over the last 20 years in my career, but currently I'm in application support role. And I can't say what product I work with because that's prohibited at my company. But
yeah, totally cool, man.
Yeah,
type of work is great. Ryan. So even before, well, you can share what you do now, but what did you do prior to being a dealer and AV enthusiast?
So before I was a network engineer for some health systems, and before that I was doing something similar to what Erin does. Can't really say much about that. So on similar stuff. So that's about all I can say. But I was a network engineer, and then I moved into this kind of stuff, and I'm a AV dealer and custom installer, and then I do all of the support and training internationally for MadVR.
Super cool. So, I do this full time now. I started my channel in January 2018. In January of at that time, I was a youth pastor. That's where Youth Man comes from. I was doing student ministry, working with teenagers from 6th grade up to 12th grade. Did that for 23 years, 4 years part-time, and then the rest of the time was full-time, working at a local church. I worked for 3 different churches over that 23-year period. And really, I was just getting too old for working with teenagers. We would do these things called lock-ins, which is 7 p.m. I'm sorry, we'd do it like 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. At one time, we did 7 to 7, which was stupid. Who wants to go from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. with hundreds of teenagers? We'd get a bunch of churches together, rent out what we call a trampoline park. It's like an indoor, just trampolines tied together, and you can jump from one to another one and jump into foam pits and different things. But we'd have like 300 teenagers in there doing manhunt and stuff. And I just got too old for that. And so I just began to ask God, all right, like, is there something else I can do? Where are you headed with this? And I really thought that I was going to move away from youth ministry to kind of like what I would call a media pastor, working in maybe a bigger church, doing graphic design, doing social media, doing their website, doing all the things that I love to do, technology related, making videos, editing, and things like that. And so I worked for a company called One More Child as a communication specialist, did that for a year after I resigned from the church. And the cool thing about that is I learned a lot about advertising. I learned a lot about branding. Not that I'm the best at it, but I learned some areas of business that I just didn't know about. And that was really, really helpful in what I'm doing now. And so I was youth pastor, doing my part-time business in website development at home. And then on top of that, I was trying to grow this YouTube channel. And so I did that from 2018 to 2020. In 2020, I made the jump to just dive in and go full time. And it's been an incredible ride. I've met some incredible people, such as these 3 gentlemen here. There's so many other people in the industry. There are brands that I've had a chance to meet in person, to get to know owners, to hear their story and their passion for home theater and music and movies. God has allowed me to fly all the way over to the Philippines, to make some content over there. And next month I'm going out. I forget even where it's located, but I'm going out to Wisdom Audio's headquarters, or their manufacturing plant facility. I'm not sure exactly what you call that, but it's for a dealer training. And not that I'm going to become a dealer. I just want to learn more about their product and what they stand for. And I'll make some content about that. We started a business last year with M-Wave, and it's just been crazy, man. It's been super, super cool. But you guys, the 185 of you that are still hanging out with us after 3 hours, the subscribers, the questions we get, that's what's so meaningful to me, is the relationships that I've established with you guys. And so thank you for letting us just hang out with you tonight. And I appreciate Erin taking the time out and dropping by and sharing his wisdom, and Jonathan, as always, and Ryan. You guys not only are just a wealth of knowledge, but I truly am grateful for your friendship. And so with that said, man, we got folks I saw Japan. I saw folks from Australia. Yeah, Nicholas says, I need to come over to Australia. Nicholas, all it takes is a sponsor, man. I'm serious. Like, we get a company that's willing to pay me to go over there. That's got to be more than just, my flight. But if they can pay me and help pay my bills, dude, I'm all for going to Australia. I'd love to come meet Tony over there. He is a great content creator with Build Montage. Maybe while I'm over there, I can go hang out with him, make some content with him. But But it's been a fun ride, man. I've enjoyed every bit of this. Enjoyed getting to know these three fellas here, and just the experiences and the opportunities that have opened up. Man, I'm super, super grateful. Any thoughts, fellas, before we wrap up?
I appreciate you guys inviting me. Just wanted to say that. So
absolutely, man. We look forward to having you at M-Wave. We're gonna have a blast there, and I think you're going to Audio Advice Live as well.
I plan to. Yeah.
I'll be there. I've already got my
God,
flight.
I have to see you like twice. And
Oh,
oh my God.
By the way, what size underwear do you wear?
I don't even know where to go with that. I mean, do we bleep that out? Do we
Is this
censor
a
it?
thing in Alabama? Is this something I should be?
It can be.
I mean, I can come down there and find out.
I don't know where that just went, man.
And the watching count just dropped by 20.
They're like, that's where this show is going, man. So,
I was just thinking because you stink. Because you stink. You need underpants.
Super cool, man. All right, guys. Well, y'all have a great week. And I've got a couple of videos that I'm working on this week. So I should have another review of the Definitive Technology speakers that I'm reviewing. I'll have that. I'll probably edit that tomorrow, and so it'll be posted on Tuesday. So hope y'all have an incredible week. We got some folks that are coming to Audio Advice Live. Christian, look forward to seeing you there, buddy. That'd be great, man. So y'all have a great week. We'll catch you in the next. Hang on, I gotta remember our name because we just changed it. The AV Experience.